I'm Kelsey.
I'm Cassie.
And I'm Nolan from SCP Weekly. We bring you news from on-site and off-site.
And we share your love for the creative community that surrounds the SCP Wiki.
Join us on Tuesdays for new episodes, wherever you listen to podcasts, or on YouTube at SCP Weekly.
Hey there, SCP fans. My name is Grigori Karpin, and this is Simply Creative People, the show about SCP creatives, be they authors, artists, or off-site content creators like YouTube and TikTok. We're focused on bridging the gap between various fans and serving as an introduction to different concepts and stories on the wiki. So, many welcomes to all, and let's get started.
Welcome back. This is episode 39 of Simply Creative People. My name
Fucking hell.
My name is Grigori Karpin, and joined as always by my co-host.
This is year 38 of Harry Blank.
Happy birthday to both of you. And our returning guest 2 times in a row.
Whoop whoop, let's get it.
And that's
Plaguepjp.
Plaguepjp. So, yeah, we're going to do something not quick, but we're going to do something a little bit more streamlined today, because we're going to continue covering the 8,000 contest, as there were just so many excellent entries, and we didn't want to leave anybody out. So,
we're still going to leave like 100 and something.
Oh, yeah.
Out,
but not
just
the ones
so
that
everybody's
matter.
got that clear.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Off on a positive start, Mr. Make sure it's positive.
I know. Yeah, so, I mean, if you listen to the last episode, you know what's going on. But just for a quick heads up, there was recently, in January, February, and into March, 8,000 contest. Every 1,000 slots on the wiki, we have a contest to see who gets the big, 8,000 or 7,000 or 4,000 slot. Because that one always gets a lot more attention than other SCPs. This time, the theme was fantasy. And last time we were talking about articles we thought didn't get enough attention. And we did 9 of them, plus some shout outs for I think 4 or 5 of them. This time we're going to be only covering 6, but we'll be covering all 3 of ours and 3 others. And we're going to do so pretty in depth.
Because we're covering ours, so that's why we cut down the number, because we need to actually pay more attention to these, because these are the ones that matter.
That's true.
Goddamn right.
And these are all going to be ones from the top 20. So we're not as worried about trying to get under red ones this time. And we'll probably be doing a 3rd one because there's just so many entries we want to make sure get the attention.
We will definitely be doing the 3rd one.
Yep.
Just no way we're getting through this without me covering the wondrous wedding of William Wallace Weddell. And we don't do that one in this one, so that'll be next time.
Yeah, there's a bunch more that I want to talk about too.
This is a great contest. Really good job.
No, there's always really incredible and wonderful articles submitted to a KCON, but this one is just stunning.
I have it on good authority. This is much harder to win contest than the one I won.
You think?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to everybody's going to be telling me that for years now, too.
Oh my god.
Oh, you won the easy one. This was the hard one where everybody actually tried. See, I found a new way to complain, Plague, since you stole my previous one.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in 9K. I think whatever winning off of there is going to get, the allied forces against them.
Terrific.
I know not who wins 9,000, but the winner of 10,000 will have written a 500-word article.
Anyway, so we've basically covered some creative stuff last time, so we're going to skip all that so we can spend more time with the articles, and we're just going to
Fuck creativity.
That's right. We're going to just
We're just simply people today.
people that like SCPs.
I wouldn't go that far.
Oh, well, sorry.
I haven't read very many of those.
Okay. We are just going to jump into the articles. So we've got 6 of them this time, and the first one, which Plague picked, which was SCP-8002, Maslow's Fire by Big Sloth on My Face.
And this is going to continue the long tradition of me going, that's a really good article, because fucking hell.
I know.
Good God damn, I love this article.
First and foremost, I think Sloth is the pinnacle of what an SCP author should be. A Barely interact with anybody. Extremely nice. Pop in once or twice a year to post a banger, and then they fuck off for another few months until the next banger.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Sloth is such a nice person, like unbelievably nice.
Yeah, just every once in a while popping in, going, "Hello, here's the thing."
Mhm.
Just throw a bunch of wiggly tough emojis at everybody, and then disappear.
Yeah, so this is a fun article. It's basically about the Foundation's healthcare system.
Right. Yeah.
Like, what happened? It answers the question: what happens when a mobile task force gets shit on by an anomaly? Do they just leave them out to dry? Of course, you have to assume the Foundation has some sort of hospital for the anomalous effects people suffer. But what is that hospital? How do they cure these people? So this article answers that question, and Sloth's answer is they use an anomalous being that is a phoenix. That is surrounded by a hospital, and this phoenix gives off healing radiation. But the problem is, this phoenix is injured, and it's healing. And when it's healed, this healing energy is going to stop. Meaning that the Foundation will have to come up with different guidelines or different processes for how to heal their mobile task force agents. And it's basically a commentary on the insurance and healthcare system that we have in the United States. On how, and also I think it's a commentary on the opioid epidemic as well, where you see these mobile task force agents, they're begging for them to be able to be exposed to this, radiation? Exposed to this radiation. And slowly and surely, the lead doctor, Maslov, she is trying to figure out how to heal people while also following these guidelines. And it's a really good, like, slice of life article, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
While at the same time being a big thing that that revolves around the Foundation. It's a good lore piece. It's a really good character piece. I love the character of Dr. Maslov. And on top of that, I think it's just it's long, but my God, the pacing and the characterization and the way it's formatted, it goes by so fast. It might be my favorite thing I've read from this contest. And that's why I chose it for this.
Yeah, this is your Neon God, man, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, this one, I mean, it's so funny you call it Slice of Life, and I would agree, because it feels like a small article at first. Not in terms of length, but like in terms of focus. And the further you get into it, the more you realize this is actually huge. This is a big thing. What's fun is, and we kind of gave it away already, but what's fun is that at first, the article does a really good job of kind of hiding what's going on. We're focused in on this, there's this cleric radiation, which is what they call it, and that, it seems to be kind of addictive, but it's so useful. It can't treat trauma, chronic trauma, but it can, do temporary relief, of pain and discomfort. So I think the first guy that Maslov talks to, because this is basically mostly made up with Dr. Maslov having appointments and discussing things with patients, and then through the changes that are happening as you go through the article, you start to realize that this cleric energy source is failing until finally it's revealed it's a phoenix. But, I think the first MTF agent, or maybe it's a researcher, she basically says, okay, so we can't do anything permanent for you, but I'm going to give you this treatment, and then you're going to have to come back twice a week. And he's like, twice a week? I can't. And she's like, I know it's a pain, but you can work around it and make sure that you can focus or whatever. And she does it. I think she does it to him, or maybe it's the next person. And it's basically literally fire. They're actually burning the pain and whatever away, which is fun. And it is a good allegorical thing to talk about the problems with, over medication and the problems with, more serious and alternative pain relief within the medical system. But the pacing is what really kept me going, because we start to see Maslov kind of not lose it. This is not the typical researcher kind of gets obsessed thing. It's just the added stress as we go along, because she's always kind of obtuse and kind of charming, But by the end, she's forgetting which patient she's talking to. She doesn't have the right chart in front of her, because now all these people are coming in to be treated, and they can't just be treated with this magical energy anymore and sent on their way, because it used to be to the point where they could actually treat 150,000 patients at once. Like, at one point they talk about how there's an underground subway system or a train system in which they just pump this energy through it so that you could just sit there riding on the train while the thing affects you. So it used to be literally an in and out sort of clinic, and now everyone is working overtime. They can't get enough people, and the whole time the foundation and the director who's in charge is saying, well, we are not going to expand things. We're going to solve this problem. Don't you worry, we're going to solve this problem. And in some ways they do, but obviously this is another example of the foundation's systemic bureaucratic incompetence.
Right.
Because this is such a temporary, obvious, short-term solution to long-term problems that, you have to wonder, who thought, it was just as simple as, oh, well, this works now, so we should just keep going. But pretty much once they start losing effectiveness and they start losing the energy, because eventually we find out the Phoenix is no longer putting out as much. One of the MTFs is talking about how it's really worrisome that even though the energy isn't still there to magically heal people, the Foundation is not changing their policies in terms of risk. They're still sending MTFs and everybody else out into these horrible situations, and then just you crossing their fingers. There's no change in policy. They're not trying to adapt at all. It's just as simple as, we'll figure this out, don't worry. And in the meantime, everybody's kind of fucked.
And it hits the emotional beats on that journey through that unpleasant landscape of bureaucratic and resource-based nightmares just so wonderfully, because this one's really big on the shocking moments, the upsetting moments. There's a moment that actually hits me harder than it will hit anybody else, just because a word that I made up for my stuff is used in a paragraph where the Foundation performs a horrific act of torture on an innocent being. It's like, oh no, the thing I made up is doing the achromatic waste, I think is.
Yep.
You came up with that word?
Well, I didn't invent the word literally, but achromatic abatement is one of the many ridiculous and unnecessarily wordy things that I've added to the SCP Wiki.
Oh yeah.
And
I think what else?
It's just funny that I'm torturing the Phoenix with my esoteric garbage. That's wonderful.
I think what I also really just generally in regards to Big Sloth on My Face, what I always like about their writing is that it feels very classic Foundation in a modern way. Mm-hmm. How many people could get thinking of, what was it, 6002? How many people could get away with putting a part of their article where the sludge, the skin of SCP-682 and the sludge of Old Man are put onto something and it kills it? Right. That's not something, that's generally something that's seen as a pothole, referencing these older, more popular, dangerous things as a way to make something look bigger and more dangerous. But Sloth bends these things so well into their articles where it just makes sense.
Right. There's two ways it can go. There's you did it because you couldn't think of something on your own, so you stuck that in, and there's you did it because you want to do a thing about how the world is big and these things all interact with each other. And those are the two reasons that you refer to other people's stuff, to make the world bigger and more interlinked, or because you're lazy. And this is obviously not a case of laziness, because this is a very big story, because it's about a very big Foundation having a very big problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's that Sloth doesn't use those things as a crutch, exactly.
Because this does not need a crutch.
No, not by any means.
This article could outrun, if they were somehow personified into a marathon, this article could outrun most of the things in the contest, particularly with the extraordinarily well-characterized main character, because Dr. Maslov is so much fun that I immediately... This entered my kit of things I have to steal and use elsewhere. Yeah. This is a real thing. This is all canon to me, and I'm definitely going to make sure Maslov's there. In fact, just last night, Ralston was asking me questions about my medical officer at Site 43, and I was like, it's this person or whatever. It's kind of funny. Why are you asking me about that? And he says, well, I want to borrow a medical character to send on a Foundation thing, and I'm using this character and this character, and this is the only medical character I could think of. And I went, yeah, that makes sense. Wait, haven't you read Maslov's? And he's like, no, I haven't read that. I'm like, oh, okay, forget my character. Use Maslov. Read that article. Use Maslov. Forget everything I was just saying. This is definitely the SCP Foundation doctor character for sure. Because she's so much
Maslov
fun.
is so fun.
Yeah, she's
so
great.
much fun.
She's like world weary, but without any cynicism, or not no cynicism, but she doesn't seem like the broken down like veteran, even though it's very clear that she has seen some shit. Like she used to be a field medical officer for MTFs because she used to be able to heal people on the fly. Like she had some sort of magic that's now gone.
Type red, which is apparently a healing reality benders.
And that's gone. So now she's using her medical expertise in this hospital setting because, using this energy is sort of like what she used to do. And she strikes me as that person who like certainly has seen some shit, but still maintains her sense of humor, her sense of caring. Her bedside manner is quite good, even though she can be a little blunt sometimes.
Extremely blunt. She's got like weary and energetic at the same time.
Right.
Going on.
Yeah. Exactly.
She's a person who has a lot of energy, and a lot of it has been ground down, but she's still got a lot more than everybody else.
She doesn't seem like a cartoon character, but she is super funny and super personable at the same time.
Because she talks moose and squirrel.
Right.
I really want to see a scene with Maslov and Lucretia Popescu together.
Maslov's
where
even
they're forced
more
to speak English.
Yes, of course. Maslov's even more like subdued with that, which I was impressed by because it really gave off that feeling of like, this is clearly not her primary language, but she's been using it so long that she's very comfortable in it. But there are certain little mannerisms that were very interesting and very telling that this was somebody who spoke, a Slavonic language first and foremost.
It's funny you mention cartoon character because, like, when I critiqued this for Sloth, they sent it to me before the contest, and the first line of dialogue, I immediately messaged them. I was like, I'm reading this character as Edna Mode from The Incredibles.
Yeah,
and that is a compliment because The Incredibles is my favorite Pixar movie.
And I believe Sloth said right back, like, that's what I was trying to do. I'm pretty sure I remember seeing that in the side chat where that happened.
Yeah, she's such an interesting character. Like you said, like you could tell she's seen a lot of shit. But like there's a consistent line she uses where it's like, "Let me heal you. I will heal you." Like she's very staunch and like she wants to be this healer.
Yeah.
She wants to help people. That's her main goal. I think it's implied. I might be wrong, but I think it's implied she was like a member of the Serpent's Hand or the Wanderers, or something like she was part of some form of group of interest. And she was kind of been conscripted to the Foundation, something along those lines. That's at least how I read it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember catching that. But either way, she certainly was somebody who used to have fucking literal magic powers.
Yeah.
Who is now forced to just play doctor. And there's that sense of like, she's resigned to her less useful abilities. She's not obsessed with trying to regain her powers in any way. But it's haunting to her how, and I think she even says something like this at one point, how, it would have used to be so easy. I used to be able to just like look at somebody and I could make them better. And now we have to go through all this. And so there's that sense of like, she has this significant motivating factor of wanting to try and be, a healing presence. And hopefully we would assume we would always want doctors to be that. But the reality is that's not true. And this character does not feel like the, platonic ideal of a doctor. It doesn't seem like in this world every doctor is a superhero. It's just that Maslov is. This is the same cynical medical world that we exist in today, albeit with some, super science and some magic and whatnot because it is SCP. But her character really tells me that she has been around many other medical professionals and emergency situations, and though she is very, like you said, tired and kind of, like I said, kind of world weary, that doesn't like impact the fact that she really still wants to be like of use to these people. Like she really still cares about making someone better, which is an interesting perspective to be in once they eventually get to the point where like she's in trouble and being forced into confronting this Phoenix or whatever.
Yeah, I think the best part of this is how the arc of the Phoenix parallels the arc of Maslov. I'm getting a little bit into spoilers territory here.
Well, we already spoiled the twist. It's too late.
Oh yeah, we did. Oh yeah. So the Foundation, as this Phoenix is healing, the Foundation I'll go over it again. The Foundation realizes that they're going to run out of this energy, and then they're fucked. So they try hurting it to make it have to re-heal again. And with the stuff I mentioned with like the 6A2's goop and all that stuff, they pour it onto the Phoenix, and that injures it and completely gets rid of its magical healing abilities, completely like what happened to Dr. Maslov. And so the article ends in such like a oddly heartwarming way, where the Foundation almost killed this probably benevolent being, and now Maslov's new charge is healing this thing so that they can continue together to heal other people.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I interestingly took the Phoenix as just sort of uninterested. It's not benevolent. It's just a side effect of the Phoenix trying to heal itself. Because that kind of gave me the larger than life eldritch, not horror exactly, but beings beyond our comprehension. The way that the tree was in 6002.
I kind of got a beneficent trying to help
Fair.
bitness from it, and that's partially because it's a big sloth piece, and there's usually right underneath even the really horrible things that are sometimes happening in these articles, there's usually some sort of deeper hope in beings behaving well.
Either interpretation, it ends with that deeper hope, certainly.
Because like when they do this horrible thing to it, it heals Maslov's injury.
Yeah.
And like resets she's been living
her
with for years, and it like fixes her, and she's just like, oh, it's a really wonderful moment of just, you did something that was already terrible, and there was a way to make you feel even more terrible about it. and a lot of this is about people feeling really terrible about what they've done and what they can't do, and trying to work through that, which obviously would, especially these days, would really resonate with people working in healthcare, I imagine.
Yeah, especially because there was that sense of, not the sense of, the Foundation knows that this is habit forming, that this is sort of like an addiction, and uses it anyway for its staff, for its MTF, etc. And, that really pisses off Maslov when she figures that out. And the sense that, much like a doctor who really gives a crap with a patient that is in chronic pain, there's only so much that they can actually do, right? Like, what can they do other than, okay, you're going to have to get on these medications, and knowing that many of these medications are really quite harmful in many ways, or have horrible side effects or whatever, but that's the best option that they have. The interesting thing that I saw was that the Phoenix was able to heal her entirely, not like the cleric energy was, and that just makes you wonder, like, was the Foundation just like so like wrong-headed about the way that they were utilizing this energy, that they were just using it wrong, that it could have been healing completely the entire time?
It seems pretty clear that if they'd taken the SCP Foundation approach to this situation, they could have had a lot more than what they had.
And yeah, you're right. I mean, you both said it. It feels very hopeful by the end. But the journey to get there is full of...
It's rough.
Yeah, because it's very clearly informed by someone who's actually experienced that stuff. And this is from Sloth's commentary on their author page. But it says, my own medical trauma and healthcare stress intermingled with the 8,000 contest fantasy theme to create this work, which consumed me and spat me back out from the moment the contest was announced until the moment it began. In addition to that official theme, I gave myself a second secret theme for the contest, healing. It narrowed my focus and kept me thinking about change over time, which were both helpful. And yeah, I just think that, it's just like a really... It's like a lot of these that we're going to talk about today. A lot of the top 20 were incredibly personal. Yeah,
with a lot of working trauma in there is
right.
it helps in both senses. It helps the quality of the work. It also helps you to understand the things that you've gone through as well. Writing out what you felt sometimes tells you what you feel about what you felt.
Yeah.
But just to keep you interested in it, the character work is just so terrific, because this is almost entirely centered on Maslov, and it doesn't ever get tiring. Like,
no,
the introduction to the character is just so perfect, because she's knocking on a patient's door, and the patient starts to say, "Come in," and Maslov's first line is, "I come in," and she enters.
Yeah, she's like the opposite of House. Like she's a great doctor, and she's interested in healing people, but she's also like pretty nice about it. Even though she's chatty, but even though she can be like a bulldozer when it comes to her patients, it's like just because that's her personal style. It's not like she's trying to make them feel small or anything. She's a really interesting character.
She's got intense babushka energy going on.
Like she doesn't.
Picture too.
The picture is great. Just this woman who it absolutely suits her. You can tell she's described even in the supposedly clinical prose as a short, explosive woman. And that picture totally fits that. Like the line that I sent to Ralston when I was like, use this character instead, was Maslov saying, "Cleric is magic and robot. Magic robot doctor. Far better than babbling old woman like me."
Yeah, she's got so many layers to her, because on the surface level, it's this very like charming speech patterns that she has, and she's funny, but then she's, she doesn't have any time for anybody. Like, she's just like, yeah, okay, great, here's what we're going to do. But she's also doing that because she just genuinely is that busy, and you can actually sense the fact that she's sincere about wanting to help people. But she also, by the end, is showing moments where you can imagine her like taking a crowbar to somebody's face. Like, it's just, there's so many fucking layers to this character. And I mean, it would have worked anyway if she was just a fun character. If she was just, I don't know, whatever, like Lucretia or Dr. Dan can be. But Sloth just did so much more with this character. There's like so many angles to it. She's such a believable, interesting person.
She's instantly goes into the pantheon, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, this is one of the characters who is there for, if you want a character to do a thing, there is no reason not to take this character for that purpose.
Mm.
Yeah.
One article just establishes this person to the level where I'm like, yep, this is a thing now.
Yeah.
It's fun to see, because I'm sure you guys have this as well, where you come up with a character and you just have a blast writing them. Mm-hmm. Like, the voice comes so easily. Right. Like, I have a few of my own. You could tell that Sloth had such a good time coming up with the dialogue for Maslov. I think, like, Maslov is, of course, the highlight, but I also think the dialogue here of the patients...
Oh, it's all very good.
Like, I just noticed this now as I'm scrolling through, and I can't believe I didn't notice it before. The first log where Maslov is treating somebody is with a patient named Peck, and then it wraps back around where you see Peck again. Yeah. And they're addicted to this. They're addicted to the radiation, and I think it's for me personally, it's very hard to get across these very physical emotions in writing, especially in the SCP format, where you don't have the benefit of like an omniscient perspective to describe movement or thoughts or anything like that. But just through dialogue, you see this character and their addiction and their begging, and you could tell the desperation just from words on the screen, dialogue, and it's perfect. I like it's I'd say it's a masterwork, honestly. I think this might be Sloth's best.
It is definitely the best one I've read from Sloth, and I think I've read all of Sloth's articles, and they're all terrific.
I
love this piece.
Sloth just like doesn't miss.
Nope.
I mean, obviously, everybody has like lesser or better articles, but pretty much every time. Every time. I can't think of one where Sloth didn't have like just wow, that was something.
Yeah,
which is pretty great. I certainly can't attest to that.
It's a good one to start with.
Yeah. And then we'll move on to something that I think, in a lot of ways, is very thematically similar. In SCP-8787, The Roast Not Taken by IP. But like in a completely different way, because this is not about the medical field, really. And I mean, although on its surface it is about psychological trauma, it's not necessarily about that either. I think it's quite, I don't know, intriguing. But anyway, Harry, you picked this one.
Yeah.
So why don't you give the upsell?
Yeah, so this is Ip's triumphant return to the SCP Wiki after having been gone for quite some time. And the article basically tackles that directly because I'm not going to say, like, the SCP is this, blah, 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 because the article is written in such a way that it would be absurd and nonsensical if I were to try and do that, because this is one of those articles that screws the format so goddamn hard that I'd have to start over 6 or 7 times to say the SCP object is blah, blah, blah. What's going on here is one of Ip's main characters, the character who's essentially Ip's author avatar, Dr. Catherine Sinclair, who's a thaumaturge at Site 87 in the S&C Plastics canon, has gone missing. And I think she's gone missing for most of the period when Ip was away from the site. And she went missing shortly after having a kid with her partner, who is also a researcher at the Site 87, Dr. Reynolds. And it's pretty clear that they were having some trouble with the kid. They were having trouble with being new parents, and she was getting very tired and exhausted and everything. And then she just plain disappears. And it turns out that she got isekai'd into a magic cafe. And so the magic cafe is the primary anomaly. And it turns out that occasionally Foundation personnel and anomalies sometimes have been yanked away into this weird other reality where they work as baristas at a cafe, and they have to try and experience their new lives there without any memory of who they were before. Yeah, and the story is basically them trying to figure out, like, where did she go, and then, like, what do we do about this?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's another reality for the people that are taken, but it actually is in our world, because the way that it's found out is Weddle walks into a coffee shop during, like, a conference or something.
Yeah, and we see it from multiple perspectives. We see in a sort of tale format, we see how Sinclair encounters all of this, and then we get the SCP file format from the various people who are like, wait, you found her in a coffee shop and she didn't recognize you? That's weird. And then there's just absolutely immortal moment where, like we were talking about, sometimes you can, if you have a really good reason for it, you can sometimes stick old Series 1 stuff into your story and really, really liven it up if you know why you're doing it, because it turns out at some point Abel and Iris both got stuck in this cafe and they were working as baristas.
That's right. Yeah, because this cafe will, like, blip between different cities, but it's always, seemingly, like, I wouldn't say like hunting, but, like, it seems to look for a very specific kind of person to, swoop into this fake life of theirs where they forget everything before they were like 18 or 22 or something like that. And then they have kind of a new set of memories on them, so that they have this very, like, ordinary life. It sounds really boring, but, like, these are all people that, like, could use a little boring, where they could have, like, there's an anomaly that kind of is, I wouldn't say in control of the coffee shop, but is sort of a personification of the coffee shop, and says that this place draws in people who are at rock bottom, the worst time of their life. Maybe they're broke, maybe they think everyone in the world has given up on them, whatever. It gives them somewhere where they can be without pain, where most people want, at the end of the day, a decent job, a roof over their heads, and friends to be with, in a simple, quiet life. And it's interesting because not only does her husband go to, like, find her there, he gets drawn into it as well, and it becomes this, like, they kind of have this reemergence into the SCP life, but from this fake, thing, which you could imagine someone who was a researcher or a magician or whatever, who used to live beyond the veil and had all this stuff and taken away from her kid for a year, would be angry. And, like, they're both kind of, like, I don't know, they're annoyed, but it's got a sense of, like, I don't know, like, healing is silly, but, like, they kind of came back from this bad place because of being kidnapped by this this coffee shop.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta get away from SCP.
Yeah, and I mean it's
clearly autobiographical.
Yeah,
in a sense.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, he says so in his author post that it is in a lot of ways. But what's interesting, before I get off this, it's like last time we were talking about how a lot of people took the idea of fantasy in one way or the other, and that I had thrown out an idea for like the fact that like it could have been taken like a daydream. And this is sort of that way. It's a fantasy of having a normal life when your life has like been going to the shitter. You know, Ip had kind of a rough time when he was away. I won't go into all the reasons why. Obviously, that's his own stuff to talk about. But it's very much, you know, this idea of like, wouldn't it be nice to just have a coffee shop job that actually could support me, and I could just have a quiet, normal life where I clock in and out and then go and read a book if I want to, you know? And that's interesting. Like, it's a daydream of a normal life for people that are, you know, anything but, right? You know, like Iris and Abel and Sinclair and Montgomery.
Yeah,
Reynolds.
The fantasy of like, maybe I just have to fix a coffee maker. Maybe that's my biggest problem.
Right. Like the only thing that you have to do is like serve some customers, which, you know, isn't the funnest, but at least it's not killing you. Especially when they're Dr. Weddle.
What I found really enjoyable about that cameo is that she still finds him irritating and can't stand him, even though she doesn't have any encounter with him. She only sees him like once a year, and he's still too irritating to put up with.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that he's seen her more than once.
Yeah, because he's such a fucking moron.
That's
he
right.
Actually, tell them the first time. What were you gonna say, Plague?
Yeah, I this resonated a lot with me because like my life is pretty mundane. I'm sure I'm a 21-year-old kid. I'm in college. Just like I've had some troubles in my life I'll get into when we talk about my article.
Yep.
Like, I've always imagined, like, just, like, I love the idea of just chilling out, owning my own business, and it is a fantasy in a sense. Like, I was on an internship for 6 months. I was working a full-time job for 6 months. It's part of my college's degree. I have to do that one more time now. I'm starting classes this week. I'm taking 18 credits at my school.
Oof.
Yeah. I have a girlfriend. Like, I spend time with my girlfriend. I'm part of a fraternity, so I live amongst all of my friends in our frat house. And you have all these things, and I have all these commitments. And it's just like, would love to take a step back and do my own thing. And you can't. I can't. Life's always moving. I don't want to fall behind. So reading this was like, I want this. This is what I want. So I really do thank IHP for writing it. It is very similar to, like, the core concept similar to what I wrote, in the sense of like taking a break and looking back on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So clearly it resonated with me in that sense. It's really, really good.
Well, I mean, I think it can resonate with almost anyone who has like real world fucking responsibilities. Like, unfortunately, that never stops. Like, you know, the first couple of years of college maybe feels like a breeze, but then eventually, you know, you either graduate or you start doing like you've got a personal life and you got personal connection, responsibilities, and you know, an internship. If it's not a job and a girlfriend, it's, you know, whatever else. It's gotten to the point now where I have to like, I can't take on new hobbies, you know, because I've got this podcast and I've got writing, and you know, I don't even do enough writing, and. You know, it's like, I mean, like, you know, recently somebody invited me to their D&D game that met on Saturdays, every other Saturday. And I just couldn't say yes to it because I only really get Saturday and Sunday to spend, like, dedicated to my girlfriend. It's occasional, you know, occasionally I could like, okay, I'm going to go hang out with this friend instead. But every other weekend, cutting that time in half, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I don't have the time. Like, people will be like, oh, you know, like, I'm really into Warhammer 40K now. And I've talked to people that are into it. They're like, oh, you should get into the painting. It's like, no, I don't have the time or the space or the money. No. Like, I barely have enough time to play video games.
Yeah.
And so this is, it's very attractive.
Something like this is only something like IHP could write, not only because it's their characters, and it involves a lot of the characters of their friends as well. But like they had a troubling experience with the wiki, and them writing this sort of as a in a sense, a victory lap, showing that they took their time, whether that be hard or not. They took their time and they could come back and write this piece and show that, hey, that time, however good or bad it might have been, I could come back here and write this piece and show that I've healed in a way.
Yeah, no, it's a hell of a comeback piece. It really is. Yeah, I mean, not only is it great, and like kind of an epic story, even though it's just about people at a coffee shop, but it's a return to form in a lot of ways. And what's really cool is that this is a direct follow-up to 6500. It deals with the impasse. It deals with Kate Sinclair, who's one of the primary characters in the first half of 6500. It's directly involved with that, and so it was this. I mean, not that it left right after 6500, but there was this sense of we all kind of hoped that he would come back, but like also I would tell him regularly, because I would still talk to him. Don't come back until you really feel like, you want to. Don't feel the draw, like it'll be here. And I'm really glad he did, because this is a fucking hell of a piece.
Absolutely.
But yeah, from the author comment, I thought I would read. Ip in his author post says a few, kind of some of the things that were going wrong, but I won't just describe it. You can go read them if you want. But it felt like nothing in my life was going right. This story is somewhat of an allegory about finding your way back home to someplace where you can be happy. So that's what this is, an attempt to dig into my life, what went wrong with it, and how I can move forward. Which is, terrific, because it's communicating, if anybody's going through something similar. That's what's so great about writing and art, that you can reach out and touch anybody. And B, I think it's just incredibly successful. Like, not just in the fact that it's a good article and that it did pretty well in the contest, but also I think it does what he set out to do in a really, really good way.
For sure. Definitely.
But now for a complete and utter change in tone. I picked SCP-8320 700 Million Wizards by Radiger, which is... I'm a huge Radiger fan. Not only do I think Radiger's awesome and we chat and I think she's a friend, but also I'm just in awe of her sense of comedy, of her ability to... And like, I've been listening to her podcast, which is Find Us Alive, which is about a SCP site that gets like teleported into another dimension and they're just basically stuck on their own. It's a full casted podcast, and it's, first of all, it's got a hell of a lot of drama and character development, but it's also just fucking hilarious. And everything that Radiger does is fucking hilarious.
I think that I've never read an article by Radiger I didn't like, and almost all of them are absolutely hilarious. What are you laughing at?
Coke.
The Coke, yeah.
Yes, I have to make sure I'm only interrupting myself when I do it.
But
I also have to make sure it's audible.
Of course. This is, I think it's her best article. Like, I don't know, it's so good.
It's a lot of fun.
Actually, maybe the
It's up there.
maybe the Man Bear. Anyway,
Man Bear's
really good.
And the Fish Church really.
Oh, God,
really
yeah.
good.
The People's
I have to
Church
reread
of
both
Fish
of
that
them.
just goes on forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
But this is incredibly ambitious because this is chock full of interview logs, and not interview logs, but kind of like logs of people having meetings about this problem, which I'll go into in a second, and some interviews with individual people and some of the anomalies, and it's all voice acted. There is audio files. They're about a minute to 2 or 3 minutes at most. And you can, instead of reading all these dialogue, you could just listen to it. And it's cast by, I think at least 6 or 7 people. And it's just out of this world. It's like bringing all the stuff that she's learned how to do in that podcast and making it a part of the wiki. Which the podcast already was, by extension, kind of part of the wiki, because she actually made... the underlying, when she first started the podcast, it was all about SCP-6320, which didn't exist at that time because we were in Series 6 or Series 5, I think. And then she had to make sure she got that number when it got around to when it got, and so there's this sense of like bringing home all the things that she's learned. And, I'm really impressed with this article.
It's so funny.
Yeah, and plus it's just fucking wacky as all hell. Because, okay, the anomaly. SCP-8320 is a phenomenon globally affecting all domestic cats. Although this effect is fully reversible, and the way it's reversible is fucking hilarious, does not inherently harm the animal, the resulting increase in intelligence, dexterity, and anomalous ability has resulted in the spread of populations and the misplacement of many household pets. Because every household cat has now turned into like a wizard, a reality bender, with, you know, all the silly things that come along with being a wizard in, like, you know, the silly long beard, pointy hat sort of sense. Because observed common characteristics within instances of SCP-8320-1, which are the wizard's ex-cats, very elderly regardless of the age of the original animal, long-haired and bearded regardless of the sex of the humanoid, wearing large hats, usually pointed or otherwise eclectically shaped, wearing floor-length robes, tunics, or capes in bright colors, often embroidered with simple shapes like stars or crescents, and carrying wooden staffs or wands. Because these are wizards, like full-on Dumbledore wizards. It's ridiculous.
Yes, or perhaps slightly more on
Merlin
the nose.
from,
Yeah, like
what's it
cartoon
called?
Merlin, yeah.
Perhaps
Yeah,
much
Merlin
more directly
from
on the nose.
whatever,
They're Discworld
Disney
wizards.
movie.
Oh, okay, right.
They're Discworld wizards because every single named character in this story has a Discworld character's name.
That's right. Yeah, I feel like I'm missing out because I haven't read any Discworld stuff.
Like Dr. Weatherwax, that's Granny Weatherwax. Dr. Og, that's I can't remember Og, but that's a witch as well. Vimes is a character here. That's the head of the Night's Watch in the Night Watch in Ankh-Morpork, the largest city on the Discworld. All of these characters have Discworld names because this is a big Terry Pratchett tribute, basically, and it is very Pratchett in the sense that it's so fucking funny.
It's very overstated in its explanation of these things. They're literally wizards, and I think like you get hit by that. Cats have turned into wizards, but there's also these little like understated bits of humor. Like my favorite is how it's described in the article and developed throughout that the wizards only use their powers to randomly shoot lightning and fireballs out of their hands, and they also just fight each other.
Yep.
That's it. They don't do anything
And
else.
they're cats.
Yeah, they're cats.
Yeah, mostly they're incredibly territorial. They're like not hostile to humans at all, but like to the other wizards, they're like, fuck off. I liked how they can find them because each of them creates a tower.
Mhm.
Like they suddenly have a wizard tower. That they create small localized weather events, but primarily thunderstorms. And they attack and consume small poultry like pigeons and game hens. But not like rats and stuff, just specifically birds.
Like, Brad does this a lot where they take their this anomaly and they just twist it on its head. Like, you'd think the main problem would be that every single cat is turned into a wizard. But no, the main problem is that these wizard cats are eating so many birds that it's becoming a crisis, an environmental crisis.
Right.
And now that's the problem the Foundation has to solve.
Yeah, not that there's so many wizards.
And then it gets to how, I mean, we find out very early on how they return to normal from the first log, basically. But the way that you turn them back into cats is you shoot them in the head. So they're just like, they're talking about like joining up with the GOC. They're talking about just telling people in America about this because, you know, I mean, everybody knows, but just like telling everybody, okay, it's just time to go out and start shooting people. And the way that they are able to tell people that are just in costumes. And there's even this joke where they're like, hey, we got to really start talking to people at like conventions because they have to stop cosplaying as wizards because they're risking getting shot in the head. But my favorite is there's these little snippets where they're asking the wizards questions to try to figure out if they are, because typically the wizards that used to be cats, they can talk, but they pretty much speak nonsense. So where did all the wizards come from? One response is from over the tallest mountain and through the widest river. The other one, from the back of a very large turtle. And then from my mommy and daddy. What are your goals or intentions? I have come to save the kingdom from the wicked demon Loslakanak, or whatever. And then there's a footnote, no such demon exists.
We checked.
To be perhaps some sort of healer or other man of science to serve the unwashed masses.
I have to note that one's from Thaddeus the Nasty. Seems a little bit of a mismatch.
I know. Jeremy the trespasser, I'm running away from death. He'll never find me here. What is a house cat? Cassius the powerful, some manner of serving utensil, I suspect. Nigel the broke, how the hell am I to know that? Ulrich the meaty, a rude name for a loose woman. Just ridiculous. And then we get, these characters that are consistently through it, and they seem to be the three that are handling this the most. There's a Dr. Ogg, there's Dr. Weatherwax, and Agent Knit. And there's this fucking incredible running joke that every time they have a meeting, Agent Knit is late,
Yes.
jumps into the voice call late, or the text, messages late. And at first, there are all these ludicrous examples or explanations. They're trying to figure out, should we keep going? And then Agent joins the call. She's eating a cup of instant noodles and flipping through a day planner with her other hand. Oh, my apologies. I'm here. Big day, huh? Is this a bad time? Oh, no. A downed power line across the street. Had to talk to some guys about it. Go on. And then at one point she shows up late and she goes, oh, sorry, I was hit by a car. And I really like Og saying, and guns are really all it takes? No anti-magic countermeasures? And Weatherwax says, well, we tried knives as well, but it only works if you get them in the head, which is notoriously harder to stab than anywhere else. And Knit, who is played by Radiker in the recordings, Knit says, what about explosives? Have you tried exploding them? And Dr. Weatherwax just says, we have not tried exploding them. It's just, there's so many moments in this that are just laugh out loud funny. It's just it's so fucking good.
It is wonderful, and all the media is so well done.
Yeah, it's terrific.
I think other than the Plague Doctor logs, which are pretty, because they were professionally done, those are pretty solid. These, other than those, I think are the best voice recorded transcripts on any SCP article. These are so good, so believable. You could the characters, you could just hear their voices. They're so over this bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
I mean, we actually have a decent amount of voice actors in the community.
We do.
I mean, I did the same thing with 7000, or 7007, my 7000 entry.
Yeah.
And it was
you
just
did a
so.
great job on that.
I mean, I did part of the voice acting, but then also I got Jack Mockery to do this incredible corporate victim commercial voice. And it's just so cool to see more of that kind of stuff. Not that I was by any means the first. I mean, obviously there's been a few, but there's still not that much. There's not that much that does video or audio. It's just really fucking great. And it's really used to good effect here because Radiker is just so fucking talented.
Absolutely.
But yeah, people should go and, this really doesn't have twists. This is just an incredible ride. This is just full of charming and interesting dialogue, little snippets, kind of explaining.
There's a little twist.
There's a twist a bit. Twist. Yeah, there is. But my point is, it's not like the Phoenix or, or 8-Ball, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. There's not big things that we could spoil. This is just kind of this fun experience. But yeah, I think people should go and check it out. And more importantly, I think that they should go and listen to Find Us Alive podcast because that shit's amazing.
Agreed.
Damn right.
So before we do the second half, I just want to remind everyone of the titles of those three, because all three of them have great titles. And SCP-8002, Maslow's Fire by Big Sloth on My Face, which is a just absolute fire title. And SCP-8787, which is a very good number for IP, for The Roast Not Taken, since, coffee shop and second chances.
So good.
And SCP-8320, 700 Million Wizards by Radiker.
It just makes me laugh, just the fucking title.
700 Million Wizards. And that alone just did great work for promotion. You get a good title, you're halfway there.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you see
Living
that
on a
title
prayer.
and you're not curious, like, come on.
Right?
I will say that there are quite a few comments on this where people are, and this did very well in the contest. This is over 300 now. There's, you know,
I think it was.
it's got
Is
it's
it fourth
fourth.
place?
Yeah, it got fourth place. That's right. But there's quite a few comments in here where people are just like, I don't know, this joke, you know, kind of like overstayed its welcome. I just want to say, from me to you, fuck off. This joke did not overstay its welcome. It's hilarious
exactly
all
right.
the way through.
Yep.
Anyway.
And it's not a long article.
No, it's really
That's
not.
not-
And most of it
fun.
you can just listen to, and the longest audio thing is like 2 minutes and 45 seconds. So it's
Right? Isn't that what you fuckers like? You don't even like reading words.
Right.
You just want to have it thrown at you. This will do that, so stop complaining.
and it's all acted by, you know, if not professional, very talented amateurs.
Free fucking voice acting for you to listen to, you fucking... Yeah, great article.
Yeah, it is really good.
Does the black moon howl?
Only for those with an unwavering desire to hear the truth.
Access granted.
You have been selected for an opportunity, an orientation as a trusted associate, if you will, into the secured, contained, and protected files of the Foundation. SCP Unredacted distributes new files for review Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern on secure channels on YouTube, Spotify, and scp-unredacted.captivate.fm.
Hey there, fans of Simply Creative People. We're still mostly unsponsored, so any financial help you can give us through Harry's or my Ko-Fi helps keep the show running. If you can't support us financially, just try to spread the word about the show. We've grown in the last year of production, but I think there's still a wide audience of SCP fans out there who would get a lot from our podcast. Finally, in every episode we leave a link in the description to my author page and to Harry's, along with our guests. Consider clicking through and checking out our work. We've both been so pleased to see the growth of the show and hope you'll consider reading some of our stories on the wiki. Thanks so much for all the support during this first startup year of the show. Here's to 5 more years of episodes. But okay, so now we're going to do the self-serving
Getting into
thing.
the best article from the
winner.
contest right now.
Well, certainly the one that,
Objectively.
yeah, that's how it works.
That's how it works.
yeah, the best.
So yeah, we're
article's
gonna
always
start.
the winner.
We're gonna start with yours, which is the winner at the 8,000 contest, which is SCP-8000, the seal of approval. So, give us the elevator pitch.
It's a Christmas Carol with a seal instead of ghosts.
You know what? That's pretty good. That's
Yeah.
pretty good.
That was literally
Yeah.
literally how I wrote this.
Oh.
I
I identified it as such immediately, as I recall, in the crit.
yeah, you did.
I was gonna say it's a Wonderful Life, but that's more fitting.
Similar deal, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to write a fairy tale. That was my goal. Writing a fairy tale, something with some sort of meaning you could get out of it from the end.
A moral, if you will.
Yeah,
Ooh,
moral.
writing
That's the
something
word I was
meaningful.
looking for. Yeah,
Always difficult.
yeah. So I will say my first idea, an idea I've had for a while. I think I mentioned this in the previous podcast. Was a big machine that finds really big anomalies. And I wanted it to be a commentary on what do I do after I write a 001 proposal? Because you write this big grand article like your magnum opus, and then you go back to writing random main listers, and it can feel a little anticlimactic in a certain sense, where it's kind of like, do I quit now?
Oh, I
I
can't
would
wait
like
till
to-
you see
I would-
how much worse it's gonna get now, bitch.
Yeah, I know.
You won the KCON, you're super fucked. Yeah, continue. You're not super fucked, you're amazing. Keep writing. Continue.
Yeah, I said to myself, I took like a 2 or 3 month break from writing after my 001 was posted. I was like, what the fuck do I write now? And I wrote 2 like little bullshit articles. Like they were literally, I think both of them are combined maybe 1,500 words.
Yeah.
Just because like I couldn't get that big idea that I wanted to write, like I didn't have anything pumping out, and nothing really, like in a certain sense, as much as I love writing, nothing felt worthy of a follow-up, because even though my 001 proposal was seen so positively, it's my favorite thing I've written still. I still wanted to write, and I'm like, I want people to still see me as the author of this 001 proposal, not the author of the next thing I write that might be like middling. So I came up with the big machine that finds big anomalies. That was what I was originally going to write as my anomaly for the 8,000 contest when I didn't know the theme was fantasy. When I realized the theme was fantasy, I was pissed off because I couldn't write that idea anymore because I couldn't make it fantastical. So I was sitting around. I was like, what the fuck do I write? And the idea that popped in was a seal. I'm infamously known for my 001-J proposal, The Great Seal, which is a thinly veiled commentary about a disc incident that happened 3 years ago. And then I wrote another article about seals, so I became the seal guy. I was like, all right, I want to make this me. And I said to myself, I want to win this contest. So I'm going to write about myself because I know me the best.
That's good.
So
Fair.
I heard fantasy. I was like, fairy tale. I love A Christmas Carol. I remember watching the really scary Jim Carrey mocap version when I was younger. I read the book a few times. It's just like a little Christmas tradition my family had. I was like, all right, I could write A Christmas Carol, but what is the lesson? So the lesson is, basically, let me rephrase what I was gonna say. You are only as good as you think you are. If you continually put yourself down and you don't think that you're up to your own standards, you'll never be up to anyone's standards. So go into everything thinking confident, but also knowing, I have room to improve, yes, I'm gonna go in there and kill it. And that was what this article was about, and I also wanted it to be a commentary on the K-Cons itself. Everybody, like you see with these contests, these articles are long. Some of them deserve that length, others don't. People write that long because they think they need that big thing. That's how they're going to win this contest. And that's not the answer. The answer on how to win a contest, part A is marketing, but part B is also writing something well and using the SCP format well. And yeah, that was my main goal. And then on top of that, my mom passed away in December. And that was, a life-changing moment for anybody, and especially for me because my mom's a single mom. My dad was abusive, and I haven't seen or talked to him in, I think, 8 years now. Probably 8 years this September. So yeah, I lost my only parental figure. And, you could go one way, where my dad lost his mom at a very young age. He was in his 30s, and that was really a triggering event for him, where he got addicted to meth. He went into some sort of psychosis for many years. I remember as a kid, he bought a lot of trash bags and duct tape because he thought Antifa was going to come down our street and try to kill us. He bought drugs off the dark web. He spent probably $1 million on guns, gun safes, ammunition,
Jesus,
grenades. He built homemade bombs. My mom kicked him out when I was 13 years old, maybe 14. So she was my main support figure. She was always that person I could go to whenever I was feeling shitty about myself, whenever I had a problem. And she was always right in a certain way. I remember when I was 12, I had my first kiss with this girl, and I told her about it, and she was like, do not do anything else with that girl. Do not date her. She's nuts. And she was right. And that's always one that pops in my head. So I lost my main parental figure, and I lost one of my best friends, and I lost somebody I always went to for guidance. And this was something I wrote on, how do I continue being able to guide myself? And I came out as the seal just because that's what I'm known for the best on the wiki.
Is it the same seal?
It's not the same seal, it's a different seal.
You put a lot of personal stuff into that, and it makes a very big difference.
I tried. I wanted this, there's a whole intervention scene. This is the first thing I wrote for this months ago, was the intervention scene.
It feels like it. It feels good.
It's a parody of the Sopranos intervention scene where Christopher is addicted to heroin, and they sit him down and they end up insulting him. So I wanted it to be similar to that, where it's really a personal issue thinking you're not good enough, because I could say before this was posted, before I won this contest, if I went into any general chat and I said I suck at this place, I would get told to go fuck myself. And I think that applies to the rest of us, where like we have these sort of imposter syndrome moments, and the only people that really see us for how good we are or how confident we are other people, and you don't feel good saying that I'm not good enough, because I know how fortunate I am on this site. I've amassed a lot of friends. I've written some things that are very, very popular. And it sucks feeling that way, knowing that I'm so lucky and there's people who would kill to be in the same position I am on this website. And I wanted this to be like something I could read over to myself whenever I'm in one of those moods. And be like, yo, shut up. You're pretty good at this.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I found it I was talking about last time when we were talking about managing stress while in the contest, and trying to explain without sounding like totally fucking self-absorbed, how difficult it is when you see, especially because contests not force you to, but make it very present and very easily accessible to see how other people that are, at your level or whatever, how their things do versus yours. And it's so easy to get into this mindset of like, ugh, I'm not very good at this, like whatever. Like, I mean, I was just earlier today was looking up, the 6,000 contest entries. And I was blown away because I was so sure that everything that was above ours would be astronomically above ours still. But most of them, we're catching up to. And we wrote a 96,000 word thing, which is stupid. It's crazy. But I was so convinced that that's really great. I mean, it's great that it's over 800. That's cool. But then even when I say that, my brain immediately goes, yeah, but that was because, Locke was in there and Ip was in there and Harry was in there. It's not me. It's so easy to get sunk into that mentality where you can say somebody was just giving me shit about it a couple of weeks ago because I was just like, I'm not one of the big authors. And they're like, fuck off. And I'm like, yeah, okay. In black and white, I guess it kind of is true that I have reached some sort of success on the wiki. But my brain just immediately goes, yeah, but I don't have any of those ones that has got astronomical numbers. My brain immediately says something like, oh, but I only have one solo article that's over 300. Whatever. But lots of people don't even ever get that.
41st highest ranked author out of something like 3,400 people.
Right, exactly.
And you think you gamify the site. Like I mentioned this in the last episode. You gamify the site. You take a step back. Even on some of the lowest rated stuff I have, I'm like, 45 people have read this and decided this was good enough to click a button and give them confidence to. And then let that be 100, 200, 300, and so on. It's a crazy number.
Yeah, and then, lots and lots of people read these things that aren't members of the site. Not just because they're too young or whatever. There's genuinely thousands and thousands of people.
I can't say this as a general rule, but from every time that I asked back when we had Google Analytics before our glorious web host refused to answer our emails and lost us our Google Analytics because they care so much about the largest revenue generating thing on Wikidot. Before that happened and I was able to actually get our numbers for stuff, it seemed generally speaking that the number of unique visitors was something like 100 times whatever the rating of the article is.
Sai was telling me about how many unique visitors had been to the wiki, the Vanguard, the no return page. It was crazy. It was dozens and dozens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
And even way more than that for Victim. And it was just like, what the fuck?
I asked about 7,000 when it was around 1,000, and he said about 100,000, and I was like, what? What?
Yeah,
I'm realizing that I didn't go over this anomaly, so I'll let you finish recording.
Yeah, what the fuck is this article?
That's true. But yeah, all I wanted to say was that I really, when I first read this, Crit, I was just like, oh my god, this is speaking directly to me, because it is so wonderful. Because in this article, we have Leg, who is going through the same things you or I or Harry or any number of people that have reached significant success. in our small pond or whatever. But also, you feel like, but I'm not that good at this. I'm not fill in the blank.
So I'll go over this anomaly. So this starts, it's a format screw in a sense. It starts with your standard containment procedures description. SCP-8000 is a very, very long seal. It's capable of interdimensional travel, which it does by biting a rift in reality and pulling back reality to make portals. It speaks, it's intelligent, and it lives in a very big library. And in that library, so this seal is sort of like a deity in a sense. I wouldn't call it a deity, but in what it does, it's sort of deific. It finds people who are having personal troubles that may lead to dire consequences, finds them, and it tries to show them the errors of their ways and convinces them to change them. Very similar to the ghosts of Christmas past, future, and present. So what this seal does is that it seeks out my author avatar, Director Leg. And Leg is in the process of, or has already destroyed his site and killed everybody in there solely because he couldn't look past his own personal issues and his own opinion on himself. So the seal goes through all of these memories, and a majority of these memories are real things that I've experienced. There's a part in here where Leg as a kid gets his swim shorts stuck underwater and he has to swim out of them as a kid when he was like 8 years old, and that happened to me. I never played basketball, but I needed something sports, so a lot of these come from like my own experiences, and it's basically a traveling through Leg's history, and then after every interaction with the seal and Leg, there are past transcripts that go over the timeline for why the seal is showing up here. So they sort of go back and forth and they mirror each other. And yeah, it's a character study of myself.
Which is one of the best ways, really, I think, to make a believable character study, is just examine some elements of things that have happened to you or things that are trends in your life. And the way you did it here is very entertaining, and the number of comments I've seen of people going like, man, this is just like me and this is so relatable is tremendous.
Yeah. I mean, because there's also, like, beyond the thing that we were just talking about, why it's relatable, I think there's something that has nothing to do with success that's really relatable here as well, which is, we all go into these, if we are pursuing a creative practice of one way or the other, drawing or writing or whatever, and we don't like really think about it too much, or maybe we think about it too much, but we're not really taking a methodological perspective on it. We just kind of go into it, or at least I do a lot of times. And any time where there's like a bit of a moment where I'm not like motivated or I'm unsure about my own, when I'm having those moments, those imposter syndrome moments, it's like all of a sudden I don't even know how to do this. Like, I don't actually know how I've done this before. How does this work? And I think there's something really useful to be said, to be taught. It's not a didactic piece, but like in this article talking about, hey, you can actually assess what you're doing and how you're doing it and improve those things without like suddenly thinking you're the god of the written word, and also not sinking into the depths, but and look at and like, oh, everything I write is shit. Like, you can try to not be objective, but like take a step back and actually like assess your written work or your drawings or whatever, and think about how you do these things, because most of the time when you're not thinking about how you're doing it, you're also not thinking about how you could improve. And if you are just repeating the same actions over and over again, and maybe that's successful, maybe it's not, oftentimes, not all of us, but many of us will feel like, oh, we're stuck in a rut, even if we just wrote something or drew something that got a lot of attention. Because if it's just like the stuff that we used to do, then, are we really improving, whatever. And, I think there's a lot to be said about this piece specifically, about like taking a real strong look at what it is you're doing in a creative sense and informing yourself of your own standards, not the emotional weight of like, oh, I feel good or I feel bad. No, because those things are like oftentimes not dependent on the end result. I can look at things that because of the mentality I had when I was writing it, or because maybe it didn't get that much attention, or maybe it got a lot of attention, that my feelings towards it are not objective by any means. You have to like be able to assess your own. Was I successful in the thing that I set out to do? How could I do it differently next time? And becoming your own motivation, your own reviewer in a lot of ways. I don't know. I think it's a really useful point on multiple layers. So I really.
It's funny you mentioned the writing process, because this was not a fun writing process for me.
I'm sure.
Only because it's so not because it's like a personal thing. My 001 proposal was very personal to me, and like I bared my soul there, and I'm bearing my soul here. So this was a very similar process. It was just it's so different from what I'm used to writing. I write very cynically in a sense. Like all of my characters are meant to be a means to like a punchline or a means to some sort of twist. Mm-hmm. So I had to flip that on its head, where I wanted to write something that's Plaguepjp. I also wanted to write something that is me, that is Paul. So I found myself in like a rut where I had these parts. I had to get the voice down for the seal, which was very easy. I like the voice I have for him. But then I had to really make it so that this arc of a very personal experience to me can be communicated to the general reader. So I remember I was sending Ori Tiefling like hourly updates. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but like daily updates on what I was writing, because they know how to write an emotional piece. I used 7999 and 6001 sort of guidelines for this, where it's two characters and they're talking about a very objective thing, but also a very personal, emotional thing. And yeah, it was really hard, but once I got into the groove of it, I normally am able, like my 6K con and my 7K con things were done like within week 1, like a first draft was done within week 1. I normally send it off to crit, I'll rewrite it, I'll add stuff, take stuff away for about a week, and then I'll be done. 2 weeks. I didn't finish this until around 5 days before the contest.
God damn.
Or the posting periods for the contest was ready. So like it was very stressful for me. I had a feeling that like I was in a spot where I might be able to win. I just had like a weird gut feeling about it. I was like, I think this is a winnable contest for me, and that compounded the stress of like this. And then on top of this being like a personal article I wrote in the wake of my mother's death, and sort of going over those emotions and going over the emotions of being in a spot where I'm a quote-unquote popular author on this site, and having all of these things sort of culminate in one sort of thing. I was shaking as I was posting this. I was like, fuck. If this does poorly, it's gonna really sting in a way.
That's relatable. Yeah.
So,
I mean, for obvious reasons.
Yeah,
I'll talk about it later. But very similar when I posted mine.
It's funny that it's in not funny, but it's funny that that's in 8,000, because I also have the same experience interpolated into 7,000. There's basically a moment where the protagonist of 7,000 does something that prevents his mother from dying, and it didn't work over here. It works for him. So it's interesting that 8,000 and 7,000 both have elements of that personal tragedy specifically, and then also burial goods as well, as we'll talk about.
Yeah, but what you were just talking about with the shaking as you posted it, like. As opposed, I mean, it's always very sensitive. We're always very nervous, or whatever. Like, it always feels like, oh God, I'm posting this. Like, what are people going to think of it? But I can see what you mean about when you posted this, and like the same thing with what became 8140, where it was just like, oh God. Like I've never been bothered by someone telling me, this didn't really do anything for me, until I wrote this one. I'm like, really? That's what you came away with?
Yeah. Right.
Like, you could hate it.
Once it's that personal, it's very difficult
I know.
to distance yourself from the feelings you get when you react to people who don't like it.
Like, it got to a point for me with this where, like, I sort of stopped taking downvotes as a criticism, and before this was posted, and then as this was posted, of course it's going to accumulate a few downvotes, and I wasn't really feeling like a personal slight against it, as much as I thought I would. And then when I got to, like, I think 60 downvotes, I was like, all right, these just don't count anymore.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident. Like, you guys know I've gotten into we got into like an author feud between three of us. So, like, the stress came from not the downvotes, but just like, how am I going to get more people to read this? And that sort of drove me a lot, where I like not being worried about downvotes, in the sense that it's not a criticism, more than it's just like, it's derailing the track that I should be on right now.
I was so fucking worried that, like, I know this is stupid because obviously you were more worried, but like, I was losing my mind over the last little bit of this contest because, like, no, Plague, please let Plagues win. Plagues has to win. It has to be Plague. I was like, no, come on. Everybody asked, like, friends who have accounts on the wiki but don't read the wiki. I'm like, could you please read this one? And I'd previously been like, could you read mine and then read this one? And eventually I was like, could you just read that one and not read mine? It was like, come on, please. This is 8,000. Because as with 6,000, I read your draft and I went, yeah, it's probably this one. This is probably the one that wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will not get into it, but I really wanted it to be this one out of the options.
No, we won't get it.
I'm very glad it won. I'm very like, yeah, of course I would be glad it won, but like,
no, but I mean, like, you can say that without. We can say that without it just being the self-serving, oh, I'm glad I won, ha ha ha. No, this was like something really important. And I think this one is something really important for people to read. And by specifically it being 8,000, more people are going to read it. More up and coming or people that want to be authors will read it. And hopefully, probably not because media literacy is fucking dead, but hopefully some of them will come away with realizing, like, hey, it's all relative. Anyone can feel super successful and then be like, if you literally write something and you genuinely have no sense of like worry of rejection, or or you're worried, did it actually work out or whatever, then like your writing probably isn't very good. I mean, anybody that I've seen in this community or outside this community that is so absolutely sure that their thing is the best thing in the world, it's not. Like, in general, usually not. Have you ever heard Zack Snyder talk about his movies? He thinks he is God's gift to cinema. It's incredible. He thinks he's fucking Scorsese. And let me tell you something, I don't even think Scorsese's Scorsese. And Zack Snyder thinks that he is, fucking Shakespeare for the moving picture. And he's not.
Really is. I was always asking myself the question. I think this is a standard question that every SCP author might ask themselves. How do you win a K contest? It's different from winning another contest where it's much smaller. Normally the offsite community is not as involved. And other branches, like the international branches, aren't as involved because it's a very small contest. There's no real big prize other than a front page feature and be able to say, hey, I won X contest. But this is like, you are being stamped as, at the start of the series, you're setting the tone. So I would say that the answer, this isn't a 100% you're going to win the contest solution, but the answer that I've come up with myself, I wrote my 6K con entry was 6003, and that was a horror, sort of eldritch horror story. And that wasn't something I expected to win, where, I just wanted to write something fun. It was my first contest. 7,000 I was gunning for a win. What did I write for that? I wrote 7,001, and I wrote something that was meant to pander. I wrote something that wasn't Plaguepjp. It was meant to be the big SCP article. It had a lot of lore. It had something that the people who only know like 5 Series 1 articles could read and go like, oh, I recognize that. Oh, this is cool. I know that Site 19 is a thing. Oh, it's an anomaly. I wrote something for them, and of course that didn't work out. It did well. 6th place is very, very good. But it wasn't that. I'm glad it wasn't that. Regardless of how much I love the loser, I'm glad I wasn't that win, solely because it doesn't represent me. And then 8,000, I wrote something that I meant to be myself. Like I said, myself bared on the page. And I could see that with Harry, where Harry's for 7,000, he wrote all of his characters. He wrote some big grand story that only he could write. I wrote something that only I could write. Rounderhouse wrote about the Wanderer's Library. He's an admin of that website. He wrote about the experience with writing and reading stories, and that's something that only he could really write about. You have
What? No.
Tanhony.
He's not the only person.
Oh, Rounderhouse in the sense
You meant
that
the Wanderer's Library part.
Yeah, I know, and there's... All right. Okay, go ahead.
It's true. There are other
Yep.
Wanderer's Library authors who write on the wiki, and they generally don't write on the wiki anymore. So
I mean it in the sense that Rounderhouse's story is something only he could write. It is a Rounderhouse story, and if I read that, only reading one other Rounderhouse piece, I would know that Rounderhouse wrote this.
yeah.
Tanhony, for as much criticism FCP 5000 gets, it is a Tanhony story where he takes some base object and he turns it into this big thing. And you could criticize 5000 for pandering to the off-site audience for being a very sort of big article that only tries to name drop things, but it is a Tanhony SCP. And I could keep going. 4,000 for Pepper's Ghost. I think only Pepper's Ghost could write something like that. It's a unique idea. It's a fun concept. It's a really, really heavy lore piece that became very popular on the site and with others today.
2000 is very, very Hammer Maiden. Yeah.
The only one that really doesn't fit this is 1,000, where the site was, I think, like, what was it, 16 people participating in that contest?
Yeah,
and almost everything was Drek.
Yeah,
but I mean,
I said it on the episode. It was a shit ass
yeah, it's a bad
1,000 is good though.
But I want to a little bit because there are a lot of entries here that fit that classification.
Of course.
I mean, I don't really think that has much to do with winning.
No, I do. I
saying...
absolutely agree. What he means is what he doesn't mean like if you're the guy who writes the thing that's like you doesn't mean you'll win. But you have a way lower chance of winning if you try to win the contest as opposed to writing something that speaks to you and your strengths. And that's what I did with 7,000. I did not try to write the thing that I thought would make everybody go, yeah, you won the contest. I tried to write the most me thing I could that felt good enough to deserve winning. And that's what Plague did as well. And that's what Rounder did. And I think Tanhony actually tried to do exactly the same thing you did with Site 19, but he did a better job.
I don't actually think that's that much like other Tanhony articles, to be honest.
It is in the sense where it's a character, like he writes a lot of single character pieces. Where
that's true.
They're just going through something and relaying their experiences. This is just that dialed up to 55.
Hey, that is actually 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, and 8,000.
Oh yeah, they keep getting big.
No, I meant very focused on. I mean, there are other characters involved, obviously.
Yeah, very focused on one guy.
But very focused on.
They are one guy. Yeah, it's Pietro and then Moose and then Weddle and then Leg.
Yeah.
But I absolutely agree with the being true to yourself, writing a thing that you want to write because that will make it better. Writing a thing that is playing to your strengths. Writing a thing that is you. Assuming that you refers to somebody who is good at like writing stories, just some guy whose very first thing he's ever written, who doesn't do any reading and everything. Maybe the thing you want to write won't end up being much, but it will be practice, and then you can develop a voice, and maybe someday you can have something. But Site 19 is one of my least favorite things you wrote. It's good. It does exactly what it sets out to do, and I like it.
Yeah.
But I think you would have been way less happy with that as your winner than with this one, because this article is you up, down, left, right, and center, and that one was an attempt to win. This was an attempt to win too, but it was also an attempt to be yourself, and it works so much better.
I am rewriting Site 19 at some point. I think I'll do it over the summer. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that, and I could go into every single issue I have with it. It is my second or third highest rated thing I have, and it is my least favorite thing I've written. and comparing it to what I wrote here, I like, in a sense, I'm embarrassed about it because it's not, like I said, it's not me. It wasn't written with the passion I put in. It was written with, it was manufactured in a certain way, and people do like it.
It is still
And
a
I
very
don't-
cool thing. It's like
yeah.
the idea that Site 19 is this weird anomaly of itself that generates
Yeah.
these bizarre ass characters, and that it's all part of a master plan to shore up the town. It's a neat concept, and you executed it correctly.
It's also very
yeah.
good cake-on material.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah.
But it's not an article that only you could have written.
Yeah. So the answer to how do I win a KCON is you don't. You get lucky, you build up an audience, you give yourself a unique voice, and maybe if you post at the right time and culture is right at the time, and you really, really put in the effort to not write something that is manufactured, you write something that somebody could feel the passion off of, you might win a KCON.
That's right. And then in 9Con, somebody will win with a completely pandering mercenary short thing, and we'll all be really angry. Until then, I'd say that logic stands. And again, congratulations on winning. You definitely deserve it.
Thank you. This is my first contest win.
Same. Isn't that funny?
Wait, is it really?
Yeah, I only won 7Con. You only won 8Con.
I guess I won the SCPD meme contest, but that was unofficial.
Right. And later on, Rounder and Nico and I won that IntCon, but that's not on the main wiki. Yeah, it's funny. It's weird to only win one contest and have it be a KCon.
I'll take this one. I will. I'll take
No
it.
kidding. Yeah. And then there's Grigori, who really won Romcom, but we won't talk about that.
I mean, I don't think I'm ever going to win a contest.
Good. Now he's setting up the karma.
No, this isn't. That's not the way this works. Because I don't write things that have mass appeal. That's not a minimizing of anything you guys wrote. Obviously, these are 7,000 and 8,000 are terrific articles. But I mean, like, I think mine are always kind of like niche. Not like they're so original or anything. But I mean, I never get that much attention. I mean, 6,500 got a lot of attention, but I think a lot of that has to do with it wasn't just me. There were like 7 names attached to it, you know?
Yeah, this is Grigori Karpin, 6th place winner in the 8,000 contest.
That's right, 6th place, which is not first.
Out of
I will
150
do that.
fucking articles that were posted.
I just said, not that it didn't do well, not that I won't do well, but that I don't really think I got... I'm never going to get the same kind of attention. I never do. It's fine.
don't think that's a
I'm
bad
excited
thing,
to see
though.
what
You write
9,000 is
things-
written by Grigori Karpin.
Yeah.
Well,
You-
maybe.
you
But
write
like, I don't
things that
care
you
because
specifically
my
like.
whole point is I don't give a shit anymore. Because I've never been prouder of anything than I wrote what I wrote for this contest. And
And that's what matters. And that's what
Yeah.
gave you a chance at winning. That's what put you all the way up there. Is you really
Oh,
cared about this.
I don't
And
know.
It works.
oh yeah. But you know,
Dude, like the reason you weren't up right at the top is because there were short things in a video game, like right there
No.
at the same time.
No.
Yeah.
No. I'm never right at the top. But that's not the point. The point is
Oh,
that
you're at the top. You're right there. I'm looking at it right now.
whatever. The point is that
You have to
I'm
deal
always,
with it.
but I'm not in the top. My point is very much so that I'm always gonna do well. Not always, but if I give it a shit and it's something I care about and I do, obviously I'm a pretty good writer. Otherwise, it wouldn't get results every time. But whatever, that's fine. Like, I don't care anymore because honestly, I'm just like so enthused about the thing that I made this time, and like it made me rethink the way that I feel about 7007 because I'm just really fucking proud of what that turned into, even if it didn't.
Honestly, that's how
like,
everybody should feel about their
yeah,
answers
but
sometimes.
it's
This is what
hard.
it's supposed to be,
That's
but
my point.
But there's a prize, and the prize is so good that it kind of colors everything a little bit.
But like honestly, finally, I can actually tell people, hey, stop worrying that much about whether or not your thing is good enough to win. Because like, who gives a shit? Like, I get it. I've felt it so much. I've felt like so insecure about these contest entries. You know, especially with 7,000, but like even in little contests and stuff, fuck it. Because I was just like, okay, this is not going to win. I don't care. Don't give a shit. Because my only goal was whether or not this piece touched people or not.
Yeah.
And it did. And that's fucking awesome. Like and I'm
See
glad
that-
that yours won, Plague, because yours was also kind of not going for the same thing, but like obviously it came from a similar place, but also like it's very clear from this article that it was meant to reach out. Like it was communicating for yourself, and you were talking about yourself. But if you were just doing that just for yourself, you would have never posted it. You were genuinely trying to be like, hey, let me share this bit of me. You know?
And that's what the 001 did as well, which makes them such a good pair.
Yeah.
They work so well together.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, that's all.
Great. What I do like about your KCON entry
wait,
and your
well,
rating in general.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to talk about this one, and I'm like, wait, we're going to get there.
Yeah, but just on the topic of like, you write for an audience, but you write for the audience that you want to write for. You'll shamelessly and confidently write. Yeah,
I just write for me.
You have that audience. Yeah, you have that audience solely because you write for yourself. You have your own series. You'll write for that, and you'll do it for however long you want. You have your own GOI. People don't like it. Fuck them. I'm still gonna write for it.
Most people like it. I think the people that don't like it are just very loud.
Oh yeah. You love the Deva. You made the Deva hub, and you will write for them. And if people don't understand the lore, fuck them. I still posted this, and I'm gonna do as best as I possibly could, and that's a good thing. It's an admirable thing. And you might not ever win a contest. That's fine, because you're still successful in the sense that you are writing what you want to write.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I was talking about. Yeah.
And that's the exact opposite pitfall that 7001 fell into.
Yeah, I mean that's why I was trying so hard to like get my thought out, because I was like, no, this is not just trying to be negative.
It's like I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, because I mean, like, it's
too. On this.
But it took this one. It took this contest, and it wasn't even through it. You heard me plenty of times feeling fucking petty about it as shit until about halfway through, when I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore.
It was pretty funny watching you do it, because you had to do a thing where I've had to do this occasionally, where I'm doing really well in a contest and you're not doing as well. And I'm like, I don't want to brag, because then he'll feel worse. And I saw you having to do it in the opposite direction. And it was really funny. It was really, really funny, because you were like, oh man, this other one's catching up with me. And then you'd stop saying it. I'm like, yeah, he's thinking, but I'm still 4 or 5 places ahead of you.
Yeah. Well, I was sure. We're going to talk about, we need to move on anyway. I was so sure yours was going to catch up. I was like, I'm still shocked that it didn't.
I think we would have been a contender, at least, if we hadn't posted so incredibly late.
Yeah, well, that was fair. Your problem.
That's fair. Well, you know, it's still what? Was it still, it was 9th place and it was really late?
Yep.
I mean, that's
Harry, you're in a fun spot where you kind of don't have to give a fuck about these contests, in the sense that it's something you want to win, because you already won one. And that's what I'm looking forward to for 9K Con, where I can kind of just, I could fuck around and do whatever I want, and maybe do well. We'll see.
The thing is, go on. Sorry.
Main goal that I have from now on is getting a fun slot. I want to go for 9999 next time.
I think that's just getting number 2. That's still going for the win. Shut up.
In a sense.
Okay.
I think it's the second prize.
Yes. The thing is, I was looking forward to not worrying, and then Place put a ton of effort into plotting this one out, and my co-authors put so much effort into this, and I'm like, oh shit, now I am worried, but I'm worried on their behalf. And then, magically, it managed to shift me being worried for Plague, and like, oh god, please let Plague. So I expected to be calm and collected for this contest, and I was almost as fucked up as I was in 7000.
This was an oddly stressful one.
I hated this contest.
I mean, contests, that's what we talked about last time. These are stressful things. Because it forces you to, really pay attention to not just what you're doing, but also what other people are doing. It drove me crazy to see Roig's Red Death, not rising higher. I just was like, everybody, just please go and Hecatomb. I mean, all the ones we talked about last time. It just was, even if you are completely serene about your own thing, which I would be blown away by anyone actually being able to do that. But you still would be. It's still stressful.
I wasn't.
Anyway, okay.
Because I was worried we weren't going to get any higher, and I was correct.
I'm talking about 7,000.
Oh yeah, 7,000 was just a cakewalk compared to this one, and yet I was still freaking minimizing it.
It's still valid to talk about.
No, I mean I sailed ahead of the nearest person to me, who was sailing ahead of the nearest person to them.
Yeah. Okay, well let's talk about your entry now. So SCP
8-ball. Ball.
8 Ball, which is 8888.
Yes, that's the number we wanted if we couldn't win.
Well, smart. By yourself, by Billith, Dr. Sumerian, and Placeholder. McD.
Yeah, Placeholder McD.
Okay, so this is really complicated, so just do your best to do an elevator pitch.
Oh, it's quite easy. The Foundation has a strange Magic 8 Ball, which is a mechanical device that has artificial intelligence, and it appears to be able to give completely accurate and extremely useful information to the Foundation, and they really need it for a lot of their day-to-day stuff, not least because all of their AIs are based on it, and it gets heisted, and they have to heist it back.
It's Ocean's 11, the SCP.
It is. So
it is. I mean, genuinely, it is.
Placeholder's whole idea was, I'm going to take all these ideas I've had, because he's had all these ideas about in his conception, which is also mine in my canon now because of his, is an archivist who is a machine intelligence that was derived from 8ball.aic, which is derived from this older, more complex 8-ball. He had all these ideas about Site 15 and about AIAD, the Artificial Intelligence Applications Division, and all of this stuff, and he wanted to make use of it for a long time, and he had this sitting in the back of his head. And I think he probably had most of his plot figured out when everybody gaslit themselves into believing this contest was going to be about infinity, because they saw the last contest where the number actually affected the theme, and because everyone's a fucking goldfish, they all went, for the second time ever, this one will definitely have a theme that matches the number. And nope, it was fantasy. And Place spent, let's say a week bitching at me in my DMs about how much he hated fantasy as a theme.
He changed his name in a bunch of different Discords to Fantasy is a Bad Writing Prompt.
Yep. He was pissed. He was so pissed. He was more pissed than he was when it was Nature for 6,000, and he screamed in my DMs, "I'm mad about Nature." He was so mad, and he was so confused about what he was going to do. And I was not happy at the beginning of the year. I just won't go into it. And I was out of it. And I was sitting here like, I'll just wait and see what people are going to pitch at me. And a few people pitched some stuff at me. Stormbreath actually pitched the ideas he was going to write at me, because I wasn't going to enter by myself. I'm going to enter in a collab, because I refuse to win, to entertain the possibility of winning by myself twice. Right. I don't like that. I really don't like that. These are limited resources. And so I was like, anybody wants to pitch a collab at me, I'll listen. Stormbreath actually pitched both. 2 or 3, I think, ideas. One of them was what ended up being Roy's Red Death. And my thinking was, I'm just going to agree to help whoever I think I can help to win. And I saw those pitches and I went, those are great. I don't think I would improve them. And I'm right, because I read Roy's Death and Roy's Red Death, and it's phenomenal. And I don't think I could have improved it at all. So I'm glad that I passed on that one. I passed on a few other ones because I didn't want to burden people with my presence if I wasn't going to help. And Place kept going like, come on, join me, and we're going to write this one. And I was like, okay, maybe
I'll interrupt you. For every contest, do people just hop in your DMs and ask you to collab?
Yeah.
Is this a consistent thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
I always assumed so, but I want to know for a fact.
I got a few this time. I expected to get more, actually, and people just don't like me as much. No, I got a few this time. I got a few last time. I've always had that just because I always hang out with people in chats, and I'm always relatively gregarious. Even the very first contest, that I was in, the Canon Renaissance contest, I was in a team within about 5 seconds because I was chatting with various people in the IRC who I was friends with, and they were immediately inviting me, and that was part of the reason why somebody started accusing us all of cheating, because all the teams formed so quickly. But I digress. Place eventually roped me in to just stand in the server where they were all discussing this and just watch everybody discuss their ideas, and I could see if I wanted to contribute or not. And I immediately was turned off by the number of people who were in the room. Because when this started, it was going to be Billith, Dr. Sumerian, Placeholder McD, Jack Ike, Hammer Maiden, and Lyran.
Oh my god.
So when I came in, there were 7 people, and that was naturally going to become 8, because obviously with 8-ball for 8con, they should get an 8th person. I was sitting there like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do another Mega Collab. I don't want to do another contest where I get yelled at for quote unquote cheating by picking all these big names and putting them in a room. I don't want to do this again. But as it went on, everybody had good ideas and the brainstorming, and the numbers started whittling down, and we got down to a fairly small core group. In the end, Laren didn't contribute any writing to the contest entry, but she did a lot of really cool CSS, and we parted ways shortly before the actual posting period. But the core group ended up being Bill, Sumerian, me, and Place, who did all the brainstorming. And when I say that, I mean they did the brainstorming, and I just sat there like a fucking lump because I was still out of it, just completely out of it. And Place hadn't been sure about Sumerian. He didn't really know Sumerian very well, and Bill just billithed Sumerian into the room, basically. Sim runs a really amazing homebrew D&D game that Billith and I are in, and Billith just invited Sim to the chat, and Place was like, all right, I guess Sumerian's here now. And then they immediately played off each other in brainstorming to the most ridiculous extent, playing off each other's worst best instincts of complete absurdity. Billith joining in as well, and the three of them just sat there constantly making the plot more crazy.
Fly on the wall.
I was sitting there doing that basically, and then as time went on, I was starting to like internalize it, and I started throwing out ideas, and I started getting involved in it. But the early brainstorming, the outlining was all them. Placeholder wrote the introduction, Billith and Place wrote the description and the conprox and everything. And Sim wrote his sections way ahead of time because Sumerian's a workhorse who gets stuff done immediately. He has like no stopper on his writing when he needs to write. And then I went in and I filled out the parts of the outline that hadn't been done, and I started finally getting into it. And as I got into it, I thought, oh, actually, this is a really fun idea, and I'm glad I agreed to be in this group. And then I just went Harry Blank mode and wrote like a billion words as well. And honestly, all of us worked so hard on this, and we all contributed so much to it, and the outline was so brilliant, the plot was so clever, and all I had to do was just sit there and write, which is great because nothing pisses me off more than having to stop and figure something out when I write. I could just go if I know where I'm going, but I didn't know where I was going half the time, and with this one, I knew exactly where I was going, and god damn it, if we all hadn't been just a bit more on the ball, we could have posted it on time instead of so late, because boy, did it take a long time for it all to come together. But when it did come together, it's one of the craziest, just most bonkers fucking things I've ever written. And I'm so pleased to have written it with these people. And it was a terrifically fun experience. And I think we all had an unbelievable amount of fun writing it. And of course, I'm talking about the writing instead of the actual article, because the actual article is 29,000 words long or some bullshit.
Yep.
But the highest praise I ever had for an article, I think, was when my co-author, Dr. Sumerian, read the whole thing, which is roughly 6 or 7 times the length of an article he would normally consider reading. He read the whole thing that we had written together, and he went, I can't think of any sections that need to be cut. And from Dr. Sumerian, that's practically a marriage proposal. Like that's one of the kindest things he's ever said to anyone. Like for Sim, thinking something can't be shortened is like, that's an incredible thing to say. Now, if we'd had more time, he and I and all of us agree, we could have shortened it down, we could have trimmed it down, we could have made it a little bit tighter. But I don't even give a shit. We are super proud of how fucking funny and crazy and absurd and escalating levels of absurdity it is. It's a heist on top of a heist on top of a heist on top of a heist. And it's a lot of fun. And I'm really pleased that I got the slot that I got, and I'm pleased that so many people enjoyed reading it.
Yeah, no,
it's funny you mention. I'm sorry.
No. Go.
It's funny you mentioned how Sumerian couldn't find anything to like cut, and how that's the opposite of what he writes. This is, I think, for all of the authors here, this is, other than it being like a spherical machine and that's sort of like a placeholder trademark, this is not something I would imagine any of you guys writing whatsoever. In a million years, if you showed me this thing, I'd be like, I don't know who wrote this. But you four would be pretty low on the list of people I'd consider. My God, it's insanity. It is so much fun. It's very, very funny, and it's not really some. Placeholder and Billith, they normally are very technical stuff, horror, sci-fi, Harry and Sumerian are the only two who sort of delved into the comedy section. And Sumerian's comedy is not really what you expect from an SCP article. It's more just pun based, and it's more about funny twist you expect from a Sumerian article. But this is like it's a shit show in the best sense of the word.
Yeah,
it is so much fun.
There's so many moving parts when you just consider characters, and you make it really work. Like, I would not want to be asked to plot out the events of this article, but
neither would I. That's why I was so glad that they did it for me.
Like, if you were to just be like, "Oh, so what happens in it?" There was a heist. Then they're at the casino night where they do on the heist, and then that goes bad, and then that goes bad in a different way. And that's all the details I'm going to go. But you have so many characters in this, and it really works as like I don't know, like a 3 or 4 episode arc of like a really well done like prestige television show.
That's always the thing places hoping to do with stuff like this.
I mean, it works really well because all of these different characters really have their part to play here, and it really works. Like, that's why I said, like, Ocean's 11, the SCP, like, most of the time when you have that many characters in a movie, I don't give a shit anymore. Like, I stopped paying attention at character number 8. Like, I'm not doing this. Right. And you keep reminding us, and I say you, I mean all 4 of you, obviously. Yeah. But like, the group, the group. Keep reminding us of people, like Sokolsky, pretty important early on and in the formation of the team, but kind of maybe less important during the like run of the actual mission. Sumerian, same deal. But then like you have them like pop back up in these really great ways. There are these great interstitials between the actual narrative where somebody's reacting to like later on reacting to something that happened, like almost like, calling the plays as they happen. Which is really, really well done. But I think my favorite part is what you did with the character that is Agent S, and I don't want to give that away, but
the twist that I introduced, that's one of the main things where after everybody else's ideas were piling in, I suddenly went, oh, I'm having ideas now. And most of that was because Hammer Maiden, who you would have expected to be writing something very technical, was originally going to be writing the magic parts of the story and was going to bring in a magic expert character. And when Hammer Maiden had to drop out because she had other things she was doing, it fell to me to find a replacement, and I found a replacement that I ended up being quite pleased with. And also I threw in lots of references to Callie Bowles' 6,000 contest entry, The House of Stars, which I really loved.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are so many characters, but the characters are all characters we really wanted to write about.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
And even the parts that you would think were suggested by a specific person weren't. Like, it's about a heist that happens during an under Vegas casino night at the Wanderer's Library. And I don't remember which of them suggested that, but it wasn't me. And you would have thought it was me. And even when we were throwing around authors, I believe Billith was saying maybe we could get Rounderhouse in to work on it, and we didn't because, as far as we know, he was working on something of his own, which he ended up posting, which is really great as well, which we talked about last time. We did. But
we'll talk about it next time.
Yeah, we did not.
We didn't talk about. Oh, right, it's on the list for the next one, of course. I forgot which list we were going on. But we were throwing around a lot of different authors, and eventually we did what we needed to do and have less authors. Just stop trying to get 8 people writing this at once because it's crazy. But there's still elements of that in that everybody was originally going to contribute a character, which is why there's so many. Except not really. There's so many because there's so many balls on a pool table. I didn't suggest bringing in Under Vegas, but once it was there, I was like, oh my god, I can have Director House meet the Rounderpeed. I can smash Rounderhouse's author avatars together because they're both so much fun. And I hadn't really done anything with House before, but I've done stuff with the Rounderpeed. And I had an image of the Rounderpeed I'd already photoshopped up that I could finally use. But just the idea of introducing those two was so much fun. And Rounderhouse reminded me after the contest, he was like, I really wanted to do an Under Vegas heist. And I wish I'd been there with you. And I'm like, yeah, I feel bad. Actually, it was even suggested at one point, and it just fell through the cracks as they were just bouncing between all the different authors. But this isn't the Under Vegas heist. There is a room for an Under Vegas heist. This is a heist where the Under Vegas characters are there, and they're very important to it. And I had a lot of fun writing House of Roundbeat. But I think a Rounderhouse written heist would be a lot of fun. And actually, I could see getting him involved in doing another follow-up to this, because we have lots of plans for doing follow-ups. 9-ball.
9-ball.
But I also really want to see a Rounderhouse heist, because part of the reason I wrote the parts that I wrote with so much just joy was because I loved his entry in the 7,000 contest. The House Loses, which is a bullshit title because he doesn't lose. I just love those characters, and I loved the road trip through hell, and I just wanted to infuse so much of that fun into what we were writing, which is why this story that seems like it's going to be a prestige drama that takes a technological device seriously ends up devolving into an absolute fucking farce. And that's my fault. But I don't feel bad about having done it.
Yeah, but the ending is... It pays off the farceness of it in this way that makes you kind of, and I don't want to give it away,
cool.
But it's so fucking cool. But
the ending is so cool. I love it so much.
I want to just slightly get back to how great Agent S is, because I'm not going to give away anything about who Agent S is or what her deal is, but she plays the role of what if Harley Quinn was James Bond's Q. Right, she's so over the top, she's goofy, she's strange, she's unpredictable, but she's also the one providing all the gadgets that are going to make this heist a possibility in the first place. If she hadn't given them any of the things that she did, none of this would have worked out. I mean, it didn't work out great anyway, but it would have been dead in the water, basically. And she's just such she's working for MCD, and Sokolsky is trying to at one point recruit her, and you just see the fun mask that she's been wearing slip, and then she's just hey, I'm sure I could find room up your asshole to stuff your head. And it's just
the most important bit of foreshadowing I wrote in the whole article was she's just goofy, and he's like, why don't you come work for the Foundation? She's like, why don't you die?
Yeah, and it was just and it stuck with me, and the ending, obviously that is foreshadowing.
Glad you caught that.
But but it also immediately made me go, and I told you after I read it, I'm I'm taking this character. Not taking her, but I'm using her. And most of the time I don't try and take other people's characters that much, but I have to use Agent S, and so she's great.
That's what I always enjoy with these articles. And I had that happen with Maslow's Fire. I'm yep, I'm taking Maslow. I had that happen with the death of Vincent Bohart. It's I'm taking this entire site. I want all of 322 of my stuff. Not 322. 333? 333. 322 is Dune.
22 is
no, it's Plague. 322 is Plague. 179 is Dune. Right. Sorry. Brain tired.
Numbers.
I know all these numbers.
Same space in everybody's head, man.
Isn't it amazing how we must have amazing numerological memory for having to remember all these sites and SCPs and shit. Right?
Oh yeah.
Holy crap.
I don't remember any of it. I just look it up each time.
But I do want to make sure we give special attention to Billith did some extraordinary visual multimedia work with this. The icon you have to click to go into the actual article is just rotating set of phenomenal animations that looks so cool. There's music, there's animated backgrounds, on divs that aren't distracting but look good. The whole article looks brilliant, and it's down to a lot of graphic and multimedia work done by Billith and a lot of work done by Liren and Placeholder as well. And a whole fuck lot of photoshopping that I did. Who did
the chalk diagram?
The diagram of the 8-ball? That's Placeholder's sketch. He wanted me to make a vector version of it, and we didn't have time. And I was like, your drawings are kick-ass mad scientist drawings. Just put it in. It's it's not good enough to just put it in. I'm like, it's really just good enough to put in, bitch.
It looks great. Super good. It looks it looks exactly like someone was sitting in front of it and trying to understand how it worked and just wrote it all down very quick. And it's awesome. I love it so much.
And what's kind of sweet about it as well is that that's in the article, and then at the end of the article, in the ending, we won't spoil, is a watercolor piece of art, I think it's watercolor, done by Placeholder's girlfriend to illustrate the ending of the story. So he's in there and she's in there. But the ending was just, that was another one of those cases where, because our brainstorming sessions were on Discord, and they went on for hours, just going through the outline and suggesting ways to make it worse and crazier. And that ending, I think Billith and Sumerian and Place were all shouting at the same time exactly what ends up happening in the ending. Like, oh, and then I know where it is. I know what it's doing. Oh my god! They all came to it at pretty much the same conclusion. The synthesis and the brainstorming was incredible. It was so much fun. It was just a lot of fun working on it until crunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like again, no serious regrets here. We got a great number. It's a wonderful article. It's a lot of fun, and there will be more.
More importantly, you finally got to tell the story where Sokolsky didn't win and got more importantly, not just didn't win, got outsmarted. Which, like, I know you had been like, how do I even tell that story? Because he's the guy that always is smarter than everybody in the room. But this is it's such an effective, like, I mean, saying twist kind of takes away from it because there's lots of twists, but
like a billion.
like a heist movie is like, I mean, that's how so many of the heist movies are, right? But it's just so great that that part where Sokolsky, where it dawns on him what's going on, but we don't know yet, is so good. Like, because I didn't read the whole thing again for this episode, but like I skimmed a bunch of it and I reread like the ending. And that part where he's talking to the demon character and it's putting it together, it's so good. You can just hear the like, God damn it!
Right, because we wrote this article and it's about this infallibly predictive engine, and it's about all of these plots coming together, this extraordinarily ornate plot to achieve a specific goal, and I've got a character whose whole thing is he's always 15 steps ahead,
right?
And he's always been scheming, and he's like Batman on steroids, and shit, just because he spends all of his time trying to figure out how to never be wrong. And in my head, I'm like, if there's gonna be a story where he doesn't get it, where he isn't ahead of everybody, it has to be this story, and it's a good beat for this story for the infallible smartass to not have thought through everything ahead of time. This is the story where it's going to happen or it's never going to happen. At the same time, I did have Director House coming out of it really poorly, and Rounder House was like, and I was like, yeah, actually, you're right. And I made it so that House doesn't completely get fucked over, because if House is going to completely lose a story, that has to be a Rounder House story, really. It's not a story somebody else does. And it is better where he comes out of it a little bit ahead. Everybody comes out of it ahead except for my guy who's always ahead, who comes out behind.
Isn't House such a fun character to write?
House is so much fun. All of the Under Vegas characters are so much fun. And I know Rounder House had a lot of fun reading this, and I'm sure a lot of it was because I had a lot of fun playing with his toys. I love the Under Vegas stuff. I love House. I love Calendar. I love Thorner. I love all those characters. The House loses. 7666, obviously. One of my favorite articles, so much fun, and I'm just glad I was able to get some of that fun in here, and I'm hoping for more Under Vegas fun from Rounder in the future. And yeah, I'm just super pleased with all of my co-authors. They did tremendous work, and I couldn't have done any of this without them. And you're right, it doesn't seem like something any of us individually would have done. And it's just because of all that planning Place did ahead of time, and all the directing he did, and all of the work Billith did into the multimedia, and writing several of the sections with his author avatar as well, and the writing that Sumerian did, and the brainstorming that everybody did. It was just, couldn't have asked for a better collaborative experience. Just wish we'd done it a little faster.
I see how it is. Couldn't wish for a better one. I see.
Well, you see, in this one, we kept going, ooh, and in 6500, we kept arguing. However, 6500 turned out phenomenally, and I'm still great friends with everybody involved in that, too. So, I mean, collaborative writing is fucking great, and you can make some just incredible stuff. The one thing we didn't want to do was write something 29,000 fucking words long.
You were bound to with the group you had.
I know.
Sumerian, you were bound to.
Yeah.
Sumerian kept saying, like, someday you and I need to collab, and it'd be interesting to see whose instincts win out. I think it'll be yours. And he was right. the length instincts. Anyway. We've talked about me for a long time. Let's talk about you, Grigori.
Oh God. Okay. All right. So yeah, I guess it's that time.
Bury your goods.
SCP-8140, which is my entry to the contest, which was burial goods.
Yes.
Elevator pitch. It's kind of like three different things are going on at the same time, but basically what happens is a layer, previously unknown layer of artifacts at Plaguepjp, which is a very, very famous archaeological dig in Turkey. One of the earliest ritual sites that we found that is, pretty significant. It's not the earliest, but it's very, very early. I think it's something like 9,000 BC, or 9,000 years ago. Sorry. And the artifacts that are being found in this layer have an anomalous effect, such that when you pick them up and touch them for the first time, but only the first time, you suddenly get a quick download of the memories that happened are associated with the owner of this item. So you suddenly experience things from their perspective as if you are writing along for that experience. It follows a researcher that is very specifically sort of molded after the stereotypical researcher who gets obsessed about an anomaly. It's a trope on the wiki that I don't normally use at all, and I thought there were a lot of reasons why I wanted to keep people off balance in this article. I wanted people to start off the article thinking it was one thing, and then hopefully by the end realizing it was something else. And not from it's a twist. Like more specifically from an emotional perspective. Because these artifacts are split down the middle between SCP-1000, sort of the last vestiges of them after the Night of the Flowers, or whatever the fuck it's called, where they were all, massacred, genocided, or whatever. And sort of very early examples of a Davite colony or small community temple complex. And these two people, in previously unknown, before these artifacts were found, had a conflict. So this is the first time that the Foundation is running into the fact that it looks like the SCP-1000 and the Davites had some sort of interactions, and that it was a violent interaction. It's all from the perspective of this one researcher, Lindquist, who is more and more obsessed about finding out what happened. His actions in the beginning compared to the end, he grows increasingly unhinged. And I really wanted people to start off, feeling fairly unsympathetic towards him. I wanted people to be like, what the fuck is this guy's problem? Because it's not clear at all what's motivating him. And he's really obsessed with figuring out how the Davites do what they do. But throughout the article, I use these sort of floating dialogues. And I give dates and I give rough ideas of where they are, like a med center or a post-incident debriefing. But I don't name the characters that are talking. And I put one of the characters speaking off to the left and one of them speaking over to the right, so that it's very clear it's a dialogue and a back and forth. But those are supposed to be like your window into the mentality of the person who's speaking. And I would hope it becomes fairly clear early on that the person who's on the right is Lindquist himself. Mm-hmm. And it's a very different kind of Lindquist, because Lindquist, in his logs, in his journals, in the technical stuff, in the dialogue, is very, if not professional, then very very clinical and very interested in the SCP stuff. The guy who we see in these dialogues is fairly emotionally unbalanced, having gone through something that was traumatic, and is reacting very poorly to it. And hopefully by the end, it becomes clear as to why those things are happening. because as we move forward in time in the research of these anomalies, the dialogues also move forward in time. They start off dated about a year and a half or so before the events of the anomaly being discovered, and then they kind of move up to present day and they catch up. And it's really about loss, and not just loss because I've lost people before that, they died of, sickness or whatever. But this is about traumatic loss, meaning the loss that all loss is traumatic, but I don't know. This was my chance to talk about something that I hadn't really ever talked about before, and I had always wanted to, which was my mother died about 10 years ago. And not to minimize anybody else's experience. Obviously, if your parent or your sister or whatever died in bed, peacefully, that's still awful. But my mother died very suddenly. It was a very quick thing. It was like a heart attack, and then she fell forwards, and her face was pressed against the ground, and she suffocated. So the doctors think that it was probably painless because she probably wasn't conscious. But unfortunately, I was the one who found her because I was staying over at their house. I was hanging out with my parents, and I was the only one home. And so I got to be the one on the 911 call, and was the 911 operator had to convince me to do CPR. Because at first I thought, no, I'm going to make her feel worse. And she was already gone. I was not at all rational. Obviously, there's no reason why anyone would be rational in that situation. But,
Right.
And then I was the one who, once the emergency crew got there, I was the one who was calling my dad and calling my sisters and my brother and telling them, hey, you all need to come home now. Because, our mom's passed. And just freaking out. I don't really remember most of that day. I don't really remember the next 2 weeks. And, I got therapy for it, and, I've worked my way through it, but it doesn't really ever let you go. And in a lot of ways, the point of this article was trying to show somebody who's just really in that. And even, a year later, 10 years later, nothing feels real outside of that trauma you experience. Eventually you can start to realize, hey, I'm acting like a sociopath. But in the moment, literally nothing else matters. No one else's pain or concern, and I don't know if you agree with this plague or not, but now that we've all kind of gone through this, all three of us on this podcast. It's just I don't know. Somebody could be having a bad day, totally normal thing, and talking to you about their bad day, and you maybe don't say this, but what I want to say is, go fuck yourself. You didn't find your mother dead. I don't give a shit what you're thinking, but that's not actually true, because I'm not a monster, but you have to constantly fight off the urge to not rip the head off of everyone around you. And I wanted to put a lot of that in this article because it's never fully left me. It has left, and it's gotten calmer over the years, but
it's easier, but never gets better.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't really go away. And so Lindqvist, in a lot of ways, is me. It's his sister who dies in a containment breach because I had to make it SCP relevant, but it happened very suddenly, and he gets to watch her die. And we also do, in a way, because it happens in the middle of one of those dialogues. And so this uses my trick that I like to use a lot, where it jumps back and forth in different periods of time. But it was, I don't know, I've never written anything more, because I never get to the point where I say, and here's the part where I explain why it's really sad when you lose somebody. I just wanted to show this was everything about this article was showing how I felt and how Lindquist was doing. And then using that emotional through line as an excuse to expand the Davite lore and maybe do a little bit of SCP-1000 lore as well.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway.
But yeah, I saw myself a lot in the character of Lindquist, where you like the entire article is centered on what if I had the chance to save this person, and I've considered my mom died of colon cancer. She had it for a while undetected, and it ended up in her liver, and it was at a point when she finally started getting sick. She was dancing in August over the summer. Dancing at my uncle's a DJ, and he DJs at restaurants. She would go out pretty much as she possibly could with her friends. She was dancing in August, and she was dead by December. She was in a hospital bed, I think from November 4th until the end. She was in and out of hospitals for September, and then she finally got bad enough where they had to keep her in there, and then she was basically just on hospice. They tried, chemo, and it's funny. It's like, the line for colon cancer is around 5 years, and I'm thinking, like, I wonder if she found out in May, would she be dead? If she found out in January, she found out the year before,
right?
The year before that, or what if randomly she got sick 4 years ago? And so that idea, that always sticks with you. That's the big thing with grief, is like a sense of guilt of, man, if only this person knew, if only I knew, if only I had some concern and I said this or that, if only I was standing there, And like you mentioned how everything feels unreal. I don't remember a lot of my mom's funeral. I think it's like 1,000 people showed up for it, and I don't remember any of them. I remember I talked, and it's kind of like, when I knew I'm a very literal person. Like I keep myself in the real world. And in a certain sense, like, I can see an outcome. I don't really have much. I'm not religious. Odds are odds. Miracles happen once in a while, but odds are odds. And like when I realized what was going on, I was like, she's gonna die very soon. And I grieved as she was alive, because like you could. It's horrible. You see your mother slowly decay away. And in a certain sense, it feels sudden. In another sense, it doesn't. And so I grieved for her while she was alive. And then when I finally got the news that she passed, it's just like, I didn't cry. I cried by myself, but I didn't cry at the funeral. I didn't cry when I got the news. I didn't cry that whole week. It just sort of goes, you go numb. And you really captured that feeling very, very well.
Yeah. For me, it was.
It's a hard feeling to write, and it's a hard feeling to conjure up, because it's like you don't want to feel this way forever.
Oh yeah.
I hated feeling that way, and I hate feeling this way to this day.
Yeah.
You put it out of your head, or at least I did.
Yeah, I couldn't. So I don't know how I would feel if it happened differently, obviously. But like, this was I had like literal PSD for a while. Like, I had like flashbacks about it. I wouldn't go to that.
I can't imagine.
I wouldn't go to that corner of their house. I wouldn't go over to his house. Like, I remember for like, I don't know, like almost a year afterwards, if my dad wanted to, like, I would be like, yeah, let's go get coffee. Like, I just wouldn't go there. I didn't even know how he was living there still. I don't know how he lives there now. Like, I don't freak out, but it was like in the dining room. So like there was, and the way that house is laid out, if you want to go from the living room to the kitchen, it's like this serpentine sort of, like, you have to pass by that. And so, yeah. And I mean, I remember I stayed there for like a couple of weeks in law school when I was like having my divorce. And I was just like, I gotta get the fuck out of this house. I can't be here. Even though that had been like 5 years at that point. Because like, to this
day, my grandfather died of a heart attack in his sleep, and my grandmother refuses to even go in the room.
Yeah, I mean, like, I wouldn't let myself get that, because I knew I would develop like compulsions about it. Like,
yeah.
But like, so I kind of like force myself to like, okay, just, like think of, and also like grounding exercises and going through therapy is very useful. And I found a lot of useful things with that. But like, I had just spoken to her like maybe 20 minutes before she probably died. And but like, I was in my 30s. So like, why would I want to hang out with my, 55-year-old mom? Like, why wasn't I in the room? And then my thinking is like, oh, well, why didn't, what if I was in there? Maybe, no, probably not. Like, that's not the way it works. Maybe, but that's not the point. And then like those what ifs and those guilts affects me in different ways too, where like at her funeral, I couldn't speak. Like, I was planning on it and I wrote a whole thing, but like when it came time for me to do it, like I'm gonna start crying right now. Like I just couldn't. And like, I just was like, no. And I just looked at my dad. I was like, no, it's not. I can't do it. And I was like enraged also because I'm like very not religious. And I'm Jewish, but my dad converted to Christianity. So he turned it into like a whole Christian thing about like stuff in heaven and bullshit, So like I was just a mix of horrible fucking emotions. And so like I couldn't, and like still to this day, I feel guilty that I didn't, say goodbye to my mom in that way, which is, we didn't need that. It's fine. But like, I even came out when I was writing this author note that, I said, this is for my mom. I'm sorry. I'm still so mad and fucked up over how you passed. Maybe someday I can write something more hopeful about the experience. But in the meantime, I miss you, because like, I feel like I never got a chance to talk about this stuff. So this
thing about it is like, there's never really a good way for it to happen, because
there's not.
Both of you described it happening in different ways, and it was different for me because I was in the room, and my dad and I were both there, and we were holding our hands, and like it didn't help because then your brain goes, I don't know at what point she stopped being able to hear what we were saying. Like, you don't know when they were still there, or like what moment they weren't still there anymore. Like, there's really no good way for it to go. And it's such a universal thing. It happens to everybody eventually, and it's one of the horrible universalities of human life.
Yeah.
And it'll always resonate with people once they've had that happen to them, because there will always be questions, and there will always be things like, well, if this had happened differently, how might it have played out differently? And what's the butterfly effect sequence of events that would have prevented this from going the way it went? And the fact is, it's not in your control, and there's no way to know. And that's, in a sense, one of the most pervasive horrors of human life is the final moment where it ends. You can't change anything that happened before. You can't stop it from going forward, and the opportunities are over. It's the most crushing kind of finality, and that has a very strong, it's probably one of the strongest experiences you can have, which, I mean, it makes sense that when you put that into your writing, it's going to elevate the emotive aspect of the writing, and it will make it better. I wouldn't wish that particular experience on anybody, just to make them better at writing a story. But it helps you to understand the experience you had when you write about it.
It's a weird thing how... I'm sorry.
No.
It's a weird thing how something so awful, like a parent passing away, whether it be prolonged or... especially a mother passing away, whether it be prolonged or sudden, how it's such a character-shaping moment that every person will experience it. My great-grandmother lived to be, I think, 93. So my grandmother... I was 15 years old when my great-grandmother passed away. My grandmother was a fully grown woman. And, I saw how it affected her. And then my mom didn't get to experience her mother dying, but like my father did, and I saw it. I mentioned how it shaped him into becoming a horrible person. And then I think about how it's shaping me right now. How there's a part of me where I just want to say fuck it and do all the things I would never do if she was around, just because I'm not doing these things because I want to be her son and make her proud, and like part of me's like, fuck this, she's not here anymore. I can do all this stuff now, and it's like a weird thing where it's like almost spiting her. And then there's a much louder part of me. It's like, you got to keep going, you got to keep doing this, and it's an indescribable feeling. really does stay with you, and every experience now is shaped by this. I remember the last time we went out to eat was at an Italian restaurant that I really like in the city I live in. And I took my girlfriend out to eat there randomly, and I walked in, and I remember, and I saw the table we sat at, and I was like, the last time I was here, she was alive. And then I ordered in at another restaurant to my apartment, and I was like, the last time I had this, she bought this for me. So now I'm thinking of like everything, like do I want to give up these places or these experiences and kind of preserve that memory, or do I need to keep moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how much these things have an effect on you and you know, and do for like long periods of time. Especially when, you know, all three of us, you know, you're not supposed to lose them ever, but like, you don't expect to lose your parents when they are relatively young. You know, my mom was like 57, I think. You know, I mean, that's really young. And it's just, you know, and it's just, you know, I'm sure both your moms are younger, but like, it's just...
They're almost exactly the same age.
Oh, okay.
My mom was 50.
Okay, so, but like, the point is like, you're not preparing for that, you know? It's been about 10 years, and I'm only starting to like inch towards the like preparing for my dad sort of thing, because he's in his 70s now, because he was older than her. But, you know, I was never close to my dad. I don't like my dad. I like my mom. My mom was great. My mom got me into horror. My mom got me into reading. My mom got me into like comic books. You know, she had a huge influence on my and my sister's lives. Like, she taught us how to cook. Like, you know, and what's hilarious is we're all good cooks, and she was kind of a bad cook. But she had good techniques, so I don't know what happened there. But every aspect of this article was meant to like embody the reactions to it, which is hard to describe because it is equal parts you wanting to bawl your eyes out and crawl, you know, into a fetal position in the corner and never talk to anyone again, and equal parts like just the most irrational rage. Like, if it's not at the events, if it's not at the people around you, it's at the person you lost, you know, and mad at them for stupid shit, maybe even legitimate stuff. You know, like, I was with my mom, but took better care of herself. Like, she died because she was not a healthy lady. But like, every aspect of this article was meant to like evoke those feelings of like not letting go and not trying to move forward because they're still in it. Not to say that like people can't, but like the Deva, the SCP-1000, and Lindquist, you know, 10,000 years later, looking at these artifacts, they're all dealing with the same thing, and they're all sort of raging against like the way that life deals you like a bad hand, and all fail because it's completely and utterly futile. So it meant a lot that like so many people left comments on this that like really got it, whether or not they experienced loss like this or not, which like that was the only point. I about 2 weeks, like a week into the contest being announced, I was still at a loss for what to do for the contest. I remember throwing a couple things at Harry, like just like, I don't know, what about this? You think this is anything? And it was just not feeling it. And I was like, maybe I should just not write for this one. And my brother, I just got a text from my dad. Matt's in the hospital. What's wrong with him? And my dad, just being the worst person ever at communicating, just doesn't answer for hours. So me and my sisters just have to be like, did he just break a toe, or is he shot? Like, what the fuck? And it turned out it was just pneumonia, and they caught it early, and he got on antibiotics, and he was fine. Within 12 hours, they sent it back home. Terrific. But that's not I didn't get to hear an update every 5 minutes, which would have been annoying, but at least reassuring. No, I got to just sit there and trauma spiral because I'm not even close with my brother. That's not the point. The point is like, oh shit, is this happening again? Like, I can't do this. I can't. It hasn't been long enough. It's been 10 years. Nope. I can't do it. And freaking out. And then afterwards, in the morning, oh, he's fine. He's back home now. Okay, cool. And then me realizing, oh man, like I am not maybe as okay with this as I thought I was. I thought I was doing better. And then honestly, this idea like popped right into my head. It was one of these weird things where it just like came in whole cloth of, the Deva and something. I decided it was SCP-1000. And more importantly, like fucking with somebody who had gone through something similarly, and how dangerous this line of work would be for anybody that had ever experienced real trauma. And yeah, I don't know. It meant a lot that so many people responded to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly says something about the universality of it that we're all able to talk about this at the same time. Just leads directly into this sort of universal problem. I mean, when I have to deal with this again, and I absolutely dread it, I will not be ready.
Yeah,
and it speaks to that, and I think the response that you got to it really proves that you spoke to it very effectively.
Yeah, that's, I think, like what you talked about, Plague, last time, just focusing on the nice comments people left. Like, I was just, like, people were literally congratulating me in comments. It was, like, weird. Like, oh, wow, you really perfectly, like, summed this up, or whatever. And it's like, wow, what a bittersweet thing to be proud of. But, yeah, like I don't think I've ever written anything better. Maybe I have, but I don't know. Nothing feels better than this, because I was really also focused on like evoking an emotion. I wanted people to feel like the dreamlike quality that I was experiencing when I was like lost in it.
Yeah.
And the fact that like you don't really know who's talking in these dialogues, and you're kind of wondering what's going on, and hopefully by the end it's obvious, and I think most people got it.
Yeah.
But
no, that haziness makes sense for perspective.
Yeah, and then like the jumping around of time, because like time, I don't know, the next year was just like a blur. Like, I remember things that happened in there, but like, yeah, 2013 mostly a blur. I don't know. Like I was really, really focused on like paring this down to be as short. I mean, like it's not short, but it's like, I think it's 8,000 words. And that was like, I was brutal with this one. I rewrote it all like multiple times. I like snipped parts out. I was like, okay, this is beating around the bush too much. Nope, we're getting right to the meat of it. Like there's no part of this that I think I could have cut out.
You did a really good job, and it's really impressive because all that stuff said in the past with the memories relating to the Deva and the Children of the Night, all of that stuff is just really tight, and it's not dropping an anvil on your head of here's what the moral is. Like it's paralleling the refusal to move on and accept what happened that Lindfist is doing, but it's not forcing you to go, oh, I see why this is a parallel. It's doing its own completely unique and completely functional thing. Like the two halves of the storyline comment on each other, but they don't cover the same ground in the same way, which makes it very effective. There's no wasted space, and you actually tell a completely compelling story in the past that would have been compelling without the addition, but it's the addition that elevates it. Because I mean, like, I'm sitting here reading it, and it meant a lot to me when I read it. Obviously, I mean, like, I love my parents, so it hits, and like, it'll hit for most people to some extent. It really helps to add the emotional core to what's already a very well-built little world. Yeah.
I mean, I had a really hard time with it. It was difficult. There was lots of parts where like I would write like 200, 300, 400 words and I'd be like, well, that's it. I can't do anymore. Yeah. But I mean, there was one, I was trying really hard to make it not obvious, but like the whole point of it is that the Davites and the SCP-1000s and Linkfist are all kind of they're not going through the same thing, but they're all they're all in the same mental headspace. And I think you're the only one that called it out. There's something. So the Davites and the SCP-1000s, you can understand them because Lindquist is experiencing the memories through this magic whatever. But so in the logs, we can understand them, but they can't understand each other. And there's an instance of one Davite and one SCP-1000 saying the exact same thing to one of the others,
Right.
In a very similar situation, but they never understand each other. And like I was trying to like communicate that universality of, you know,
Right.
raging against trauma and the futility of it and all that shit. So, yeah,
It worked really, really well, and I'm glad you're proud of this, and I'm glad that you got the response that it got.
yeah. It's so weird. Like people are like, "Oh, you should be proud of this," and I'm like, "I am." They're like,
it's a little bit colored by the nature of it.
yeah, like people would be like, "Oh, I hope you're happy with them." Like that's not the word I'd use.
Yeah, I'd put it up on my wall and be like, haha, I'm so glad I wrote this.
Yeah, like even talking about this was hard. Now, like there were a couple times where I was just like, "Well, gonna start crying."
Yeah, you can hear all our voices changing
I
over the
know.
course of this one.
It was funny, Gregory, how we both started our author
know.
post with "My mom died with."
I know.
My mom died at.
I know. I didn't even know your mom had passed until I read your author post. So
This is the worst host themed episode.
I know, and this is like such a downer of a one to end with.
I know what we'll do. We'll just get 3 people to do this podcast, and what will their commonality be? I know, dead mothers.
Oh God. All right. Well, thank you
But
both for saying nice
so
things.
I'm glad we did that. I'm glad we did that.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Humanizes us a little bit. We're not just a Muppet, a face, and another face on a screen.
You hear that? Random weirdos who live your lives just like trying to drum up internet drama. There's real human beings here.
Yeah, hear that? People that want to be writers and have an audience, you too can write something that scars you and that you even talking about makes you want to start crying. Yay, don't you want this?
Remember, when something awful happens, you can turn it into internet numbers.
Oh God. Well, all right. Let's read some emails. God, there's like no segue. There's like no way to like. let's just do it.
So who's first?
I don't know. Let's read
I'll
the
go
first one. All right. Esperanza Kai.
Dear Simply Creative People, hi, I'm Esperanza Kai, an English-Chinese translator mainly active in the CN branch. I have been your keen reader ever since 2020, and I'm maintaining the hub page on the Chinese wiki for this podcast.
Oh,
Very nice. Thank
Very
you.
nice.
I didn't know that.
The upcoming 8K con discussion, I'm particularly interested in hearing about SCP-8889. I translated SCP-8004, I love the characterization of Site-333 members, and SCP-8404, which is popular among my friends. Additionally, I'm looking forward to your opinions on SCP-8000 and SCP-8999, though I believe they're already on your schedule. On a more personal note, I'd love to share a bit of a, quote, love confession regarding the main creators, Gregory and Harry, as well as your guests. I spent the last year translating the grand work of SCP-6500 alongside 2 friends, completing it on the day of its posting anniversary. At this process, I became familiar with many of the works you mentioned in your articles, developed an interest in the Meta Foundation canon, and particularly enjoyed the characterization of the New Age authors' avatars and characters. I'm now completing the untranslated articles on the CN Wiki for Integration program, shout out to you, for the same reason, and I had so much fun of reading and translating them. Although I haven't had the chance to listen to all your podcasts, I thoroughly enjoyed the episode featuring comedic articles with Plague and Dune. Your readings of these articles, dialogues were fantastic, and I love to hear more episodes with authors playing their avatars or other characters as you excel at writing dialogues. Thank you for your continued dedication to producing excellent content. I look forward to future episodes.
Wow. Thank you
Translating
very, very
things
much.
is a thankless task.
Yeah.
Just Esperanza, thank you so much for this email. Like, what a phenomenal email! Like, and like all the translation work you do, but just that's amazing. Thank you so much.
It's terrific, and that's a lot of work, especially 6,500. But translating the podcast hub, that's really above and beyond, and I really appreciate that. The CN particularly CN is the gold standard for translation. They translate up a fucking storm over there.
Yeah,
and we really appreciate it, and thank you very much for the kind words. And I'll reciprocate by mentioning which ones you have mentioned. 8889 is the Willy Waddle article by Lizard Wizard, which we will talk about in the next one.
Yep.
That's one I've picked. 8004 we talked about last time, I think we did.
Yeah, that's
that's JTKC's. That one time the Foundation attempted to use simulacrum technology.
No, I thought that was Dodo's.
Oh, that was 8404. 8004 is Dodo's. Yes.
Yeah.
But they mentioned 8404 as
yes.
well, which is JTKC's. The simulacrum one. And 8999 is Ori Tieflings. No, it's not. It's Dunes. Ori, I keep thinking it's Ori. Ori went to a 001. 8999 is Dunes, yeah. And that's all the ones that are mentioned there. But yeah, I really appreciate that. It's funny that Plague has become the unofficial third host because of the number of times he's been on here.
I know.
Plague stepped away for a second, so I'll do the next one.
Okay.
It's by... Oh, wait, well, I don't know why I would say that. Plague already read the last one, so why would Plague need to read the next one? Like, Fernlom. You'll probably talk about it in the next 8K episode, but Big Slothoy Face's entry was one of the best, and I'd love to hear your perspectives on it.
Well, you did. We liked it a lot.
We did. We loved it. It was brilliant. All right,
yeah, this one's just a list of numbers, so I'm going to read the next one as well. But this one is T-Bone Berry Hill, which is, hey, Grigori and Harry, it's T-Bone. I thought of some suggestions for the episode. We didn't ask for any! No. And they've listed out SCP 8027, 8088, 8173, 8762, and 8722.
With no titles or anything,
that's
so
right.
I just looked them all up.
I don't know which any of those are.
8088 and I'll throw it... is Rur Scarlet's entry. Rur is a long-time member. Still within bounds. 8173 is Miss Harrier is Not Anomalous by Porcelain. These are all low-rated ones, so it's good to get people to look at stuff that didn't get read as much. 8762 is Once Upon a Time, which is one of the big collabs. It's by Top Down Under, TC Fannin, who we've been on their podcast.
And they've been on ours.
Yep. Mr. Frown, Greg J. Chudley, Elena Razum, Dr. Asteria, Cicada 3301 fan, and Anonymous. Ooh. And 8722 is Death, Decay, and Ignorance by Nostelle. Lots of ones that just some I hadn't even seen these ones, so very cool.
Yeah. And then to end this email, I'll throw in mine, but I'm still gonna fix it at the end of the month. But that's SCP-8327. But because that was list of numbers, I'm gonna read this one from Lizard Wizard.
That's A Dream of the Sea.
That's a cool title.
By T-Bone Berry Hill.
That's a cool username, T-Bone.
T-Bone Berry Hill.
All right, so Lizard Wizard says, Hello, Harry and Griffagoy, which is such an inside joke. It's ridiculous. Recently, don't explain it. No.
Okay,
no.
Recently,
I was talking with a newer member of the SCP community, one who has not published anything to the site but would like to. They expressed frustration at writing their pitch for the greenlighting. For greenlighting. For off-site community members, greenlighting is a process which you share a pitch for your creative work you intend to publish on the wiki, and if a certain number of people, I believe 2, greenlight your pitch, you're allowed to use the wiki's existing support structure regarding critique. And there's me adding it in, that's specifically the draft forums. You can always go to the Discords and ask for critique there without getting greenlights. Anyway, how would you suggest a newer member of the community approach this process of trying to write a first article, given that most make friends and ask them to take a look based forms of getting critique nowadays require first-time authors to undergo the greenlighting process?
How I did it was... Yeah, well, there's that. I went to the IRC and sat there for a while and listened to people talk, and then occasionally chimed in, and then I was like, hey, I got a thing. I think there's a social aspect to all of this.
Yeah.
And it is one of the best aspects of it, because everybody likes to complain about the drama that comes from being part of this, but they don't mention, because the people who are drama llamas have no friends. They don't mention the fact that like all the friends you make, all the friends that you make are like what makes the cloud of writing so cool. So when you write this stuff, you meet more people. It helps. You'll develop the friends that you show that stuff to by talking to them for the first time. Almost all of my friends on SCP are people that I first met by trading drafts with.
Yep.
So just that was funny. Just perfectly in sync on my end. Good job, guys. So just hanging out and seeing who's around. In my experience, if you're in a large enough SCP space like the official server, or even sometimes Site 19, the ARC, when it's on one of its better days, there'll usually be somebody sitting around who's just willing to share.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
The main thing is, make friends, of course, but also, read a lot, and don't just read the big things.
Well, no, this is specifically about getting
critique.
Lights. Yeah, getting critique.
Getting green lights. You want to make an idea that's fun. I know that's such a broad thing and easy for me or anyone else who writes for the wiki to say.
That's
make
valid,
something
though.
fun and have it sort of like, you want it to be punchy. You want it to be something sort of unique, a twist on something that we've seen before. The main thing is just getting yourself involved, There's people on the forums. If I ran into this when I was new, like if you go and critique people's things on the forum, whether or not you're too involved on the site or you have a lot of things posted, people return the favor. I remember I ended up critiquing, an actual Crow's idea pitch. And they ended up coming back and critiquing mine, and it was really funny because we posted our things around the same time. So it is like make friends in a certain sense, but it's sort of just being involved in the community, hang out in common areas, and if you make these friends or like you become a familiar name and people are like confident, people in general want to help, and people in general want good things to be posted to the site that they can look at and be like, oh, I helped critique that, or oh, I loved reading this as a draft. It could be a hard process if you make it hard, but it could also be a very easy process. Most SCP authors are going to be friendly as long as you are.
Yeah, and I would say that also the important thing to understand about the greenlighting process is the constraint is the point. You are trying to sell your idea in a very brief and, kind of very quick way, because we want to see that somebody has the ability to talk about their idea, but not just like spew 1,800 words at us.
Right.
The whole point is to say, here's what my article is about, and here's why it makes a difference. So first and foremost, pay attention to that 400-word limit, if that's still a thing. And make sure it's something that you actually give a shit about. We've said this over and over again on this podcast. If you just want to get on the wiki, and you're just trying to do something quote-unquote because this would be cool, your idea is probably not worth doing right now. It's not that the idea is bad. It's that until you have an angle on it, something, not worrying about whether or not someone else has or has not done something similar, but an angle in which you are actually interested in telling that story, whatever that story is, then, probably you're going to have a lot of trouble. I, most of the time, see the idea threads that where people are really struggling is because they don't really seem that interested themselves. They are writing something that's really dry, and it's very clear they're not that passionate about it.
Yeah.
I'm
reminded of... Oops, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I did just this question reminded me of this comment I got on SCP-7595 by myself, called Telepathic Frogs. Comment says, I've been thinking about writing an SCP, but I couldn't come up with an idea that was big or deep enough for my liking. This article and the story behind it made me realize it doesn't have to be that deep. Thank you.
Yeah, because it doesn't, right? Because people think, people that are off-site think that everything has to be like this big lore deep thing. And it's like, no, it doesn't. It's never needed to be that. there was never a point where we handed it down that it has to be a deep narrative. When people are asking for, like, what's your story about, it doesn't have to be a fucking thing about a deep-seated, like, emotional through line. It could just be something funny or like a cool, weird monster. But if it's just as simple as, I want to write the details of that monster, you're not doing it right. The idea post is not for you to write down all the classifications and the aspects of your anomaly. The idea
all
post...
the powers it has.
Right. Definitely does not matter. What matters is, do you have a core idea that is interesting enough for you to want to write about and you to, like, be motivated to communicate about it?
Yeah.
But the other thing is, even once you have that, it's tough to get people to pay attention to the forums. So if you're trying to get a green light, you cannot expect people to be able to find it. Okay? You have to reach out to reviewers.
Yep.
So first of all, look at the Butterfly Squad, but also look to see if there are authors that you enjoy that are active, that are doing something that is maybe something similar. You know, if it's in the wheelhouse of the Fae, maybe see if Ralston would take a look. And I'm not saying that everybody will, but you never know. Somebody just recently asked me through wiki.dm to take a look at their idea post because it was set in Vanguard. And then I normally don't look at the idea post anymore, but I made time to do that. When I was first starting out, my second article, I didn't need to create a green light for it, but my second article was going to deal with sarcasm, and I thought, what the fuck, why not? I'm going to write to Metaphysician and see what he thinks. And he read it, and he thought, oh, it's cool, and he gave me some ideas. So, you know, I'm not saying bug people. Obviously, if people don't respond, leave them alone. But it doesn't hurt to reach out either through DMs or, more importantly, you know, if you see them, you know, in a conversation with, you know, in either the SCP Discord or one of the other Discords or whatever, you know, the worst thing that's going to happen is someone says no.
Yeah, but if they say it rudely, they'll get told off by the other people in the room. So I wouldn't expect them to be rude. Be aware if you do send people wiki.dms, that's the number one least likely to be checked thing on the internet in terms of that. I barely check mine, and I always feel bad. I'll find something a month late. So if I'm not responding to you in wikidot, it's not that I just am ignoring you. It's that my brain is slush, and I have thousands of emails in there because wikidot sends me a message every single time somebody applies to the SCP wiki, and hundreds do that every single day without exception. It's insane. And also, the 19 Cord, the official SCP Discord server, has a thing called Deer College, which is a whole superstructure set up for people to go in and get their writing. It's linked to the green lighting, and it's linked to the writing critique on the site and everything. And so you can go into there and you can get some critique on there as well. So there's lots of ways to do it.
But also, don't give up
on the site.
Don't give up if somebody is a little bit dismissive of your idea, because I have seen people be dismissive of good ideas, and then I have looked at it and been like, no, this is worth going, you should do it.
Absolutely.
Because there are sometimes people that are overly cynical, and they could be very successful. They could have barely anything on the wiki. It has nothing to do with that. It's just that sometimes people are, you know, a little bit more critical.
You can get some people who only like one kind of writing too, and they'll just be like, no, this isn't for me, and that might give you the wrong impression about what you've written. But at the same time, accept the possibility that anything you hear might be correct.
Yeah, so don't dismiss anything you don't like.
Right.
But like, when you get one negative take, that doesn't necessarily mean... If you hear the critique and it's constructive and you go, oh yeah, that is a problem, then you know you got some work to do. But if it's just someone dismissing,
times, it might be a sign.
But if one person says something and it's very like, oh, I don't know, I don't like it because of this, and that's all they're saying, have somebody else take a look.
Find somebody else.
Yeah, because I mean, sometimes I find, you know, people are way too quick. There's still an element of edgy negative crit is good crit bullshit on the wiki. It's much less intense than it was, you know, 6-7 years ago, but it's still there. So, you know, if somebody just dismisses, see if somebody else can take a look. But yeah, you know, if you hear the crit and you go, yeah, that okay, that is something I could fix, then you know it's probably good crit. But, you know, just be open to hearing. You're asking for critique. Most of the time, critique is critical. It's probably not going to see it and go, yeah, that's great.
Don't be the guy who gets upset about critique. Nobody will want to look at your stuff.
Well,
yeah. Sometimes people are critiquing or like giving you. I'm talking about like draft category. Like for the most part, if somebody says this isn't working or I don't understand this, don't take that negatively. They're trying to help you.
Okay.
Sometimes critique on the site is bullshit.
Gregory, I watched the critique channels on 19 Chord, and there will be people who come in and their purpose was affirmation. That was exactly correct. Don't be that guy. Is what Blake's saying.
Yeah.
No. Actually, it's perfectly important that he shoots laser beams from his hands because that's going to get me on the right tier on the power scaling.
Right. And, if that's what you're going for, there are other places for you to write about your character.
This is very true. Lots of places on the internet where you can write your stories.
Here's the thing, and I'm not just tooting our own horn. I have looked around at other amateur writing sites, okay? None of them are producing anything like this. SCP is consistently the home of excellent writing. We have people that have been writing for years and that are still doing it, that are writing fucking works of art. Not just the ones we've talked about here today, but like, Tufto's, which will almost certainly be on next week's episode, is outstanding. And it's not just because, it's Tufto and everybody likes Tufto. No. It's the best thing I think Tufto's ever written for my money. And there's a reason for that. So if you want to be in the same boat, then, take it seriously. I know this is just amateur and everyone's having fun. And this, I get that. I'm not trying to say everyone should take it as deadly serious as if you were submitting it for a novel. But, take it seriously. A little bit.
Just be aware that the club that you can get into for writing a monster manual entry in 5 minutes that has no point, that club has been closed for over a decade. Like that's over. There has to be it has to have something behind it now.
Yeah.
And very few of the ones that survived from back then had that level of superficiality either. So just be willing to try to write something that's good, as opposed to something that just you can say you had one, which isn't really much of anything, because there's more than 8,000 of them. So saying you have one isn't anything. Saying you have one that's good, that's something you can be proud of.
Just have an idea that you actually give a shit
have
about.
Have an idea you want to write about.
Yeah.
Want to write something, not want to have it. Want to write
exactly.
it.
Perfect.
Anyway, we got a big email here from Moss. I think it's Plague's turn again.
Yeah.
Yep. Actually, can I read the next one?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. I'll read this one. I keep getting stuck with the short ones, even though I love the sound of my own voice, and it kind of pisses me off. So sure. This is from Moss. Hello. First time sending in an email. Love both of your writing. All right, so now we have to fight to decide. Didn't know it was playing, probably.
They love yours more. It's okay.
Fuck off. And your podcast is an utter godsend to listen to while drawing. Oh, that's nice. That's kind of cool. I listen to podcasts while I'm drawing too. That's very meta. I don't draw very well. I do, however, want to confess that I can never recognize your voice no matter how long I listen. People keep telling me that. I don't understand.
I don't understand it.
I've got this like kind of atonal drone, and Gregori's got a radio voice, and I don't know how people think they're the same. Anyway, I can tell them apart, obviously, but I keep forgetting which one belongs to who. It's an ongoing problem.
Gregori's the charming one.
Exactly.
No.
Gregori's the one with the just faintly concealed rage. Now,
that's true.
About the topic of the episode, 8K Con. Why do people keep 8Con? I know this is like a new brain virus. It's 8Con. It's not 8K Con. Stop it. It's even in the episode titles for SimCrate, so I need to stop saying this out loud.
Yeah, I've always said K-Cons. Yep.
Weird people. There's two kinds of author, 8K Con and 8Con. Now about the topic of the episode. 8K Con was a blast. I didn't get to read most of the articles until the contest was over because it happened to coincide with my exams. Oh, very fair. But once that was a kind of an awkward timing thing.
Yeah.
But once I did get to it, it was great. I loved 8 Ball, seriously. Some other ones I really enjoyed were The Fool. Oh, this is why we need so many more episodes. The Farewell, The Frame. The Frame? Was it Frame? I thought it was Frame. No, it's The Frame. Okay. The Farewell, The Frame. Time Pervert. God, what a ride that one was. I actually feel contractually obligated to talk about that one at some point. Like,
I
I owe a lot to Lord, so I really need to. We can talk about that without having an adult conversation, which is funny. Talk about it as what it is, which is a crazy time travel story. Anyway. And the Birch Knight in the Game of Three Chestnuts, which we did already do, right?
Nope.
No, we haven't. We have that. It's also in the list of the ones to do later.
That's Nico's and
Nico
Peppers.
I really love that one too.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah.
Also, one that I thought was very underrated, Miss Harrier is Not Anomalous by Porcelain. I think that's already been called out by one of the other emails, so I guess there you go.
What a cool title.
It is. When I first read it, there was an offset with a bunch of tests conducted by various Foundation departments, each escalating in absurdity, which I loved. Apparently it wasn't for everyone, but it just worked extremely well personally, and I'm pretty sad to see it was removed from the main article, since it was what sold the article for me. It's still linked in the author post as bonus reading, but yeah. Sorry for the rant, I just need to express my frustrations about this somewhere, lol. Yep, we are all a little irritated when we really like something and you go somewhere else and someone goes, I hated that part.
I made a whole podcast so I could express my frustrations about things.
This is just therapy.
Right.
Today more than still. Anyways, it was super fun reading through all of the entries. Well, surely not all of them. This was the first KCON since I got into SCP, so I didn't really know what to expect, but all the amazing entries really shattered my expectations. Come on, I'm sure you hated at least a few of them. Nobody's positive all the time. I don't really have any questions to ask. Just wanted to show my appreciation for this podcast. Hope y'all have a wonderful day. Well, thank you for your reading, and we all really appreciate the time that you spent.
I hope you have a wonderful day too.
Thanks for the
well
email.
Do I.
It is very nice when people send in thoughtful emails.
It's always nice to hear people doing lots of reading as well, and it seems like
Yep.
you did lots of reading, which is great. Thank you for your service. All right, Plague.
Now, from Real Surreal, sir.
Real sir.
The question: funniest April Fool's bit anyone has done on the wiki, in y'all's opinion? Now, personally, I take the trophy. I think the
Go
Great
on.
Seal
The Great Seal, yeah.
for many reasons, but I think there's been a ton of good ones. I think the bathrooms and what was the one we did? Rate My Director.
Rate My Director. Yeah, and the one we did this year, which was like real meta joke, which was not getting one done at all.
Yeah, we ran out of time. It coincided with the contest. It's too close.
I think
I think I like Rate My Director a little more.
Oh no,
They're both
I
really
like
fun.
I like bathrooms a little more.
Bathrooms
I
was
think
so much
bathrooms
fun.
is just so.
We'll do
Every
new
time I
ones.
look at it, oh yeah, we should. Every time I look at it, I chuckle. I mean, Rate My Director is
worst
great.
one-
But
Yeah.
man, bathrooms is so ridiculous. The best one is clearly the one that's not April Fool's. Everyone just thought it was, which was SCP-5486 that Plague and I did.
That was great.
We just happened to post it on April Fool's, but
That was
it
funny.
wasn't an April Fool's. It's a serious
I'm very-
article.
I'll
I'm
never
very
give
proud
that
of that one.
Yeah, it's a serious. It's short form. It's like 500 words. Oh, people are sleeping on it.
Multimedia.
That's right.
Multimedia.
Yeah.
It would,
the worst one
honestly,
was the
everybody should
I-63
read Conjunction
trend.
Memorial. It will not let you down.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think the worst one is the I-682 trend.
Fucking
That was
Christ.
fun.
You know, that was fun
Mhm.
watching that just collapse in real time. Because it was originally a post by Makin 2, who we didn't realize was starting to write a tale on the wiki. So he posted, and it felt like a shit post because it was called I,682. I did not enjoy being in the acid bath, and that was posted as a thing, and we didn't know that it was just the first sentence, and the wiki lost its fucking mind because we were all like, this is kind of brilliant in a terrible way, and then the people who thought it was brilliant were terribly offending the people who were super serious that day, and so we were getting a huge fight about it, and then more sentences started showing up, and we all went, oh, there's more, and that ruined the whole thing, and then we made him cut it back to one sentence, and then it got deleted, and it's amazing he stuck around to continue writing. It was just amazing, and then it turned into a whole trend where on April Fool's Day, fucking everybody did those, and
A horse
I
was
try not to
beaten,
be-
brought back to life, beaten to death again, then beaten some more.
I try not to be up my own ass, but I was watching that and I was like, I'm getting kind of annoyed by these fucking I682 posts.
We posted 5486, and then they got drowned out by those.
By all that like one sentence garbage, which
I was
so
like,
much worse than one sentence horror.
listen, I'm really not trying to be petty. I'm getting kind of pissed. No one will even know that we wrote this article.
Ip used it to write a nice little heartfelt piece.
Yeah.
That just stands out like a sore thumb. A couple of them were really funny, but most of them fucking sucked.
Yeah.
Not Ip's. Ip's was really nice and totally just divorced from the whole trend. But the rest of them were. There were a few that I really liked, and then they put it into like a hub page, and they said they were going to delete it. I can't remember if they deleted it, but it was a whole fucking mess. And
I think they deleted the individual ones.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. That's definitely my least favorite of the.
Yep.
Well, except like we're not going to talk about any of the controversial stuff, but
No.
that one was. Bleh.
Anyway, yeah.
Bathrooms was my pick for the best. I had a lot of fun with Bathrooms.
Bathrooms is great.
That's a great sentence.
Yep.
Oh wait, do you remember the April Fool's contest they did that one year? That was pretty funny.
No, what year was that?
What was it? Was it crack? Was like CrackCon or something? I think it was the same year as the I682 thing, because I remember Dune posted. Dr.
Crack
Sumerian-
Fic. It was like it
Crack
wasn't.
Fic,
I don't
yeah.
think it was like official.
Was that an
It
April
wasn't
Fool's
an
thing?
official thing.
It was April Fool's because I remember Dune posted Dr. Sumerian and the Grinch, and then there were a few other pretty funny ones.
I thought that was a different time of year. Anyway,
Let me check.
well, we only have one more email, so check later.
No, these contests have to go on forever.
All right, one last email. Akaleo says, "Salutations, creative people. I'm here today to ask you two unrelated questions. What is your least favorite subgenre of horror?" So let's answer that, and then we'll
Torture porn.
Torture porn, yeah.
Done.
Yeah. Torture porn's stupid.
Fucking hate it.
It's just spectacle and glorifying the worst part of horror, which is like the violence. That's not even why horror is interesting. Like, don't get me wrong, I've seen a bunch of violent horror movies, but like that's not why I watch them, or not by themselves anyway. They're so cynical. Both in the creation of and in the marketing of. And yeah. So I have the same problem with the French New Wave horror as well. Like Martyrs, the Martyrs, and Titan, and fuck off. They're not even
Body.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, torture porn. I don't like torture porn either, but the Saw series does have a special place in my heart.
Saw.
Only because
I don't know if Saw.
in a certain sense
it plays off.
sense.
I would say that
Yeah.
Saw plays off of torture porn, but I don't feel like it is the same as like Hostel.
Yeah, that's
know what I
different.
mean?
But Saw, yeah, I think it falls under the very broad definition of torture porn. So they hold a special place in my heart just because of how that shit crazy they got. And then this past year they decided, hey, what if we made another good one?
I still stand by the fact that the first two Saw movies are kick-ass.
Oh yeah, they're great. Did you see the most recent one?
I haven't yet, but that's because
you have to watch it.
I know that's what everyone tells me, but I'm like, I have a hard time like accepting the fact that they made a good one again. Like, what? But then again,
you decide to put John Kramer back in it, the best.
I know.
The series. It's
But
like, what happened?
The fact that there are characters is stupid. I don't understand. Like, this should have been one movie and then gone. But whatever. I hate horror franchises. They can't make any horror franchise long term that's good except for Evil Dead, and that one has like two different remakes.
I always hate how horror franchises invalidate the endings of every. Like that always ruins it for me.
Yep.
Well, I don't give a shit then if like. Even if they make it out of this movie, they have to get killed off in the next one. I don't care.
In my opinion, there are two Friday the 13th movies. The first and the second one. Yeah, I just, horror franchises are bad. Like, Hellraiser is one of the most original and interesting horror stories I've ever seen. Second one's pretty good. From there, it's trash. Although, again, the most recent one was pretty good. And then I've watched a lot of found footage lately, which I've started to really enjoy. And I watched the most recent Hell House movie, which was incredible. And so I was like, wow, I just kind of dismissed that series. I should go back and watch them. No, I shouldn't have gone back and watched them. Only the last one is good.
I watched the most recent horror movie I watched was The House That Jack Built.
That's a Lars von Trier movie.
Yeah, it's a doozy.
Yeah, I bet.
I enjoyed it a lot. it's a character study about a serial killer, and you watch him slowly get better at killing people. And then he's also like the embodiment of the worst person. I mean, he's a serial killer, but he's also the worst person ever because he talks about like how he's an artist and what he's doing is making art, and he goes on these diatribes about like music and all this shit. I'm like, dude, you're killing people. You know, he's nuts.
There's been not a bunch. There's been a few of those movies where it's a character study of a serial killer, and like they always are pretty interesting. Like, there's that one. Oh shit, I don't remember. Leslie, a Portrait of a Serial Killer, I think, or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah.
Anyway, the point is, CrackFitCon was indeed on April the 1st.
Oh, okay. Well,
Nice.
there you go. All right.
text.
So that was our least favorite subgenre of horror.
I had to say that to shake us out of this discussion.
No, it's fine. It's fine. And the last question is, what is your least favorite Warhammer 40k faction?
Oh, here you go, Grigori.
Am I the only one that's going to answer?
Tyranids.
Tyranids are fine, but they're like fucking
boring.
neutral.
Boring.
I'll tell you what the worst is. The fucking World Eaters. They're stupid. They're all the Hulk. They're just all the Hulk. Ah, kill! They're the whole faction. They suck. They suck so much. At least the Tyranids are interesting from a biological standpoint. The fucking World Eaters are the fucking worst. There you go.
There you go.
And the best are the Eldari. Sorry. It's just true. It's just true. Or maybe the Adeptus Custodes are pretty cool too. Anyway.
Anyhow.
All right. So if you would like to send us an email.
An Imperator Titan.
Titans are very fucking cool. If you would like to send us an email, our email is simplycreativepeople@gmail.com. Our show Twitter is SIMCREAT, and my Twitter is @GregoryCarpet.
At Harry Blank SCP.
Big PJP on everything.
And thank you for listening. We'll come back probably, I would say, in 2 weeks, and do the last episode on Acon, hopefully. Well, no, definitely. We need to move on. We'll do a third one, and then that's it. If we don't fit into that, it's not happening.
After that, the Acon will be truly and utterly
over.
Sealed. Sealed.
Nice.
Sealed. Do you see what I did?